Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Travelers, my name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate it. It's been a good week, a busy week. Hey, we're on air. Let's turn the on-air sign on. There we go. Now it's official. Now it's official that we are on the air. We got a great panel tonight. We got other people who will be joining in just a little bit later. Science Bob is here. Jimmy Church from Fade to Black is here. Danny Silva from the Silva Record. His beard is looking strong. Got good beard game going on here tonight. And tonight we're going to concentrate strictly on UFOs. It's that big of a topic this past month. Before we bring everybody in, let's say hello to everyone in our chat room tonight and be in the gold medal position. Race Fan takes home the silver. We have Wes H in the bronze medal position. Roy Boy, how you doing over in Europe? Good to have you here. Grand Paul Holland in Australia. Nice to see you. The Australian contingent is strong. Simon, nice to have you here. Steam Train Mark, thank you for letting us know we are alive in the future. Appreciate that. And we continue on with roll call. We love our former Marine, Black Dragon. We love all veterans around here. And thank you so much, Black Dragon, for tuning us in. Walt Corbin, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. Lovely Laura, music maker. Awesome Ann Palmer. Good to see you all here. And there's the gorgeous Kathy Evans. She'll be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind, to the left of the studio. Luscious Jewels, Northern Alabama Cryptid. Good to have you both here. Paranormal Alley, welcome to SOR Chat again. And who else do we have here? Well, scrolling on down, we have next on our list, Zenzabil. Zenzabil, how you doing, buddy? Dirty Filth is here. He's drawing some cartoons live for you tonight, so you can watch him as well as we go on with the show. And Robert Garcia, good morning to you. And who else do we have here? Let's scroll down. Vaughn Patrick in Edmonton. Human Carl is here, another great veteran. Yeah, we love our Human Carl around here. Thank you for joining us. And here we go. We have next the Dutch Princess, Sally Vandevoort. She'll be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind, to the right of the studio. Lovely Cindy, nice to see you. Be More Dan, how you doing, buddy? Hope you're having a good weekend so far. There he is, kids. It's Doug Shelby. The Doug Shelby has arrived. Downshift, good to see you. As we continue on with roll call, the lovely Laura Sosa, welcome back. And who else do we have here? Paradox Fossils, Millennium. How you doing? Lovely Lavira, good to see you. And here we go. Some more here. We have Sally starting off the super chat tonight. Thank you so much for your love and support of SOR. We very much appreciate it. Stu Gerson, Paradox Foxels. Good to see you here. John Hinoyosa, welcome to the show. And who else do we have here? We have the lovely Diesel Girl. Deb from SAC, welcome to SOR chat. It's it. What is it? It's it. What is it? Gotta love that song. The Cryptid Huntress. How you doing? She'll be on the air tomorrow and Sunday with us. And King of Hueco Mundo, welcome to SOR again. Fitness Marquise, welcome to SOR chat. Michael Kennedy, good to see you. And the lovely Diesel Girl. Props, how you doing? Rock the Gaspar. Lovely Vera Ray, nice to have you here. Dan Roach, welcome to SOR chat. as we like to say hello to everyone. Carfunibre and Simon Condon, good to have you here. Hi, Science Bob in the chat room. Susan goes, time traveling. Asians, how you doing? Welcome here again. It's been a while. And we got about 35 seconds before we're going to launch this show. So let's see if we can fit roll call in here. Oob to Joe's Maine, you've got Lola. And more pictures, please. We love that little puppy. All right, Troy, SR71, nice to have you here. And who else do we have? Quickly here. Kurt Cocaine, welcome to SOR Chat. Strangeland, Steve Wolf, nice to have you here. Digger Dog, nice to have you here. Terry Hall, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you back. And Logan Black, Paulie T, the gorgeous Fidgety Aura. Chuck Webb, welcome to SOR Chat. There's Richard Elmore, Truth Entertainment, good to see you. Margaret Oliver, welcome to SOR Chat. Do me a favor, everybody. Let's get your horns up. Let's rock. Of Central British Columbia to you listening around the world. This, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. We're going to rock out Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We're going to get this thing going right off the bat here because it has been a very, very busy month in the world of UFOs. Joining us tonight is our resident artist, Dirty Filth. He'll be drawing along all night long, painting cartoons for you. You won't see that on the radio side, but if you're on the YouTube side or the Twitch side, you got a good view of what Filth's mind is all about. Here we go. Science Bob McGwier is here. Jimmy Church from Fade to Black. Danny Silva from the Silver Record. A little bit later on, the fedora-wearing John Hudson is going to join us, and we may have Tim McMillan from The Debrief coming on a little bit later as well. Gentlemen, thank you so much for participating in the SOR Roundtable tonight. It's good to have you. We're going to start off, gentlemen, with a very, very introspective look at Lou Elizondo. Now, this is a man who came on the scene just a few years ago with the To the Stars Academy, and most recently he did what some people are calling almost like a farewell tour of podcasts and radio shows and YouTube channels where he said he's had enough. He's got to go back behind the scenes and get things going. Danny Silva, I want to start with you on this one because you've been following Lou since his TTSA days, and you've been a champion of what he is doing and everything that goes along. I mean, looking at the past 4 years, what worked, what didn't?
You know, I think I think basically everything worked, really. I mean, it didn't led to this, what we have today. So how could we really say anything didn't work when we have hearings and all this other stuff? I think there was bumps in the road. Obviously, TTSA didn't really accomplish everything they set out to. Now, did that have anything to do with Lou? I'm not really sure, because at this point, right now, everything that they set out to really accomplish has happened. Now TTSA themselves, they didn't build a ship and things like that. But I mean, there's hearings and, you know, there's videos out there. They're not the greatest videos in the world, but people want them. People are seeing them, and the public is there. So really, I think, and people aren't scared, I think was another goal that they had that people don't always talk about. They're waiting to see how the public was going to react. Were they going to get scared? And generally, some of the public doesn't even care. Some of the other public is like, of course UFOs are real. So I think everything has basically worked as far as what Lou has set out to do. I think he's changed his plan and called some audibles at times. And now there's this announcement from Danny Sheehan. I don't know if Sheehan was supposed to say it or not, but last week Sheehan kind of let it slip that Lou is advising Space Command on UFOs, quote unquote. So that's a huge development if it turns out to be confirmed. I mean, I don't think Sheehan would have said it if it wasn't true. So by and large, I think everything is basically has worked. There's been bumps and audibles and changes, but now we're here where we're supposed to be.
All right, let's bring in Jimmy Church here because, Jimmy, you and I kind of took a stance right at the beginning of the whole TTSA thing. And even though we really didn't know each other back then, but we kind of told our audiences, hey, you know what? Follow it. Be careful with it. Take it with a grain of salt. Use your own discernment and judgment. And then all of a sudden, Lou leaves TTSA. All of a sudden becomes very much more, I'm going to call him human on that end. What is your thoughts? What is your feeling on Lou Elizondo coming in real hard after Tom DeLonge basically ruined himself with the Joe Rogan interview, and then Lou really taking over, taking the spotlight as the number one guy in ufology?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. There's a few questions that need to be addressed, but my position with Lou really hasn't changed from where I was 4 years ago, which is it's a blanket way of looking at things across ufology, which is we're not here in the now to be judge and jury. We have to let time play out. It's got to play out. And I had said that 4 years ago when the announcements and everything started to happen at the same time, which is, look, just don't push all of your chips into the middle of the table. Let's see how this plays out. In 2 years, we can look back. In 3 years. Now, here we are 4 years later, and we can look back and kind of gauge things. My position is still fundamentally the same. We have to let things play out. And Lou knows my position on this, and his position is the same as mine. Trust nobody. Listen to everything. And if you just do those simple things, which is listen to it all, let's try to assess and figure it out, but trust no one, trust yourself, and use discernment, and we will move forward. Now, if we look where we are today, I'm surprised that TTSA has gone away. It went away faster than I think any of us thought it would. That is a little bit shocking to me. But putting that aside, the fact that we had hearings last week on the 17th of May, last Tuesday, here we are a week later, and we're still trying to figure out what happened. It was a huge day for the world, not only for ufology, but for the world. And I know, as a matter of fact, that Lou's efforts and Chris Mellon's efforts and others pushed to get this hearing happening. And I know that right now, as I speak to you, and again, this is speaking as a matter of fact, there are meetings going on in Washington, D.C. right now to get more hearings happening very quickly. So what we're going to see develop in 2022 is incredible. Are we moving towards the big D? I'm feeling it. I am feeling it. I've been at this for 50 years, Dave, 50 years. And at this point in the game, for me, I am willing to just let the machine play. The chess game that is going on right now, there are moves on this chessboard, one from one side, one from the other. And then there's another move, and it's a delicate thing. And I know that some people want this to happen right now, overnight. It's not quite going to play out that way. But the developments that are happening right now, and I expect some announcements early next week. And I'm just saying this on your show that I expect some announcements early next week. I think they're going to be eye openers, and we're going to move this thing forward. So Lou's efforts and Chris's efforts and others, those are the public faces right now. Those are the ones that are forward facing, have been tremendous. And here we go. I'm just telling everybody, buckle up. It's about to get a little crazy.
Well, I want to ask Bob McGwier this in regards to Lou leaving the scene. Is this good for ufology that he went back into the black, so to speak, a little bit of AC/DC there in order to do his job a little bit more without distraction? Or is it a loss to ufology that the face of the franchise, Bob, has, kind of disappeared, at least for the time being?
So I listened to several of Lou's interviews, and he's on his farewell tour, and I'm sure the farewell episode of his tour podcast will end one of these years because they're ongoing. The guy has not gone away. On the other hand, Danny Sheehan, I've known that cat for a long, long time, and he is not a liar. So if he will not, he tells everybody going in, especially if he goes into the Pentagon or intelligence community or any of those things and talks to them, don't ask me to keep a secret because I'm not going to do it. So if he's out there saying that Lou is joining the Space Force as an advisor, that's a fact. I'm taking that to the bank, okay, and believing every word of it. So my opinion on the hearings was really negative on day one. But typical with my kind of thinking and analysis, I cooled off and thought about it some more. And that hearing was like a great big rock dropping into a pond. A bunch of waves spread out from that great big rock, and it stirred up a bunch of stuff from the littoral zones and from the bottom of the lake. And that stuff is showing up. Now, in several of Lou's interviews, he said people were coming forward to replace him, and that they were bigger than he is. So I'm just waiting to see that and hoping it's true. I haven't found, no matter how many people from inside that work for Gary Reed or with Susan Goff or any of those people tried to knock him off his horse and break him. I have not found him to be a liar at all. So sometimes I feel he doesn't quite express himself well enough, and he hasn't thought through his sentences well enough, but I've not found him to be dissembling in any way. I think the guy tells the truth. I think he's ready to lead a private life, and he hopes these people come forward and take over for him. Like any good manager, which he was of this effort inside, even after everybody else claims it was over, because interviews were still going on, even long after the official funding ended. I believe that he is hiring his replacements, which is the saying. You always want to be hiring your replacements when you're a good manager.
All right, Danny Silva, I want to bring you back in here because, Lou going dark and working from behind the scenes, personally, I'm going to say I don't like it. I really don't. I've only talked to the man a handful of times, interviewed him 3 times. But the one thing that I really enjoyed about him was the fact that all of these Easter eggs that he would leave on different interviews and certain interviews, and some he would give more, some he would give less. But what does this say about the UFO community, Danny, when, a guy as strong as Elizondo, who could put a lot of weight on his shoulders, all of a sudden just says, screw it, I'm done. I'm done with the community. I'm done battling with people, done with the email threats, done with UFO Twitter, and just walks away from it.
I'm kind of waiting to see that happen. I know we're talking about it now and Lou's mentioned it, but I feel like we're not 6 months or a year into it where he's been quiet. So it's a little bit hard for me to kind of visualize that because he's done so many interviews, even recently. I guess he's saying he's going to cut back on them, and I definitely understand why. He's been battling all these years. He came in getting bashed a lot, and that's why I was so vocal, especially at first, trying to defend him. But then also Lou is so great. Even his biggest detractors ended up being his biggest fans and friends in the long run. I mean, he still has some big detractors. But I don't know about his retirement, quote unquote, here. I think he's going to be doing a lot of things behind the scenes. If he stops doing these podcasts like he has intimated he's going to, it'll be a little bit different. But until we're 6 months or a year into him being quiet, it's a little bit hard for me to comment on it because I feel like he's been so vocal so recently. Jimmy, did Lou give you a reason why he didn't? I didn't see that show. Did he give you a reason why he wasn't on your show last week with Sean?
Well, yeah, he got on a plane. He was on a plane that day. Lou, okay, I understand the way that people want to read into this thing. It's not a retirement. Let me be very clear, and I speak to Lou nearly every day on a multitude of issues, and he was the show that we had planned last week or earlier this week. I'm sorry. With Lou and Sean Cahill. We were all very excited about that because of the way that the hearing went and the moves moving forward. And that day of the show, Lou said, man, I've got to get on a plane and I can't. I'll make it up to you, Jimmy, but I'm on a plane tonight. And so I was going to have Lou call in during the show with his cell phone. We've done it many times. And I couldn't pull that off just so he could tell everybody he was thinking of us. But I couldn't pull that off. I can't say where he was going. But Sean flew out the very next morning. And I was thankful that Sean didn't fly out with Lou. Okay. And so we were able to continue the show with Sean. Now, back to everybody's point here. Lou taking out 2 hours a day on any given day to do a podcast when he's got other people in his circle that are going, Lou, we need to stay focused here. We've got stuff we're doing here and stuff. And Lou, being the nice guy that he is, he has a hard time saying no. He wants to be in the community and wants to be out there. I don't think he pays a whole lot of attention to criticism on Twitter. He's dealt with other stuff in his life that is a bigger challenge than UFO critics on social media. I don't think that affects him at all. So no, that has nothing to do with it. It's about time management and figuring out how to move forward over these next days, weeks, and months. And that's what's going on. Lou has been a champion of disclosure and trying to get to the truth. And that's his goal here. It's not about retiring and backing out of the public eye or anything like that. No, that has nothing to do with anything. He's just a very, very, very busy guy with right now the weight of the world is on his shoulders.
Science Bob, let's get you in here to give your speak. Do you think that he is got too much behind the scenes going on right now that the public has to take a back seat here?
Yeah, I believe that completely. Not only that, the guy's got a family. He's moved to Wyoming. He needs to set up a business. He needs to make money. I think the things we heard about the personal sacrifices he made to go out to California and be with TTSA, I think that those personal sacrifices at the expense of his family's well-being are in fact true. And they went along with him, of course. And you and others have interacted with his main supporter, and she's about as tough as nails as can be. And so she's all behind him. But look, there comes a time when you as a person want to do all you can do for your family, and that he will have a major consulting role with Space Force. That's fantastic, especially if it gets him to Huntsville. So and to SCU. So, I can go up there in 2 hours and interact. with Hoffman and the others that are up, and Eric and others that are in Huntsville. And I'll be up there next weekend, so we'll see how it goes. Anyway, so I believe that overall Lou is doing what is good for Lou right now, and they have largely, he and Mellon and the others, which are the unbelievable military personnel and some civilian aircraft pilots and others, have done in testifying before Congress. A lot of that went on in the background. But look, the Gillibrand Amendment did not get written in a vacuum. I mean, Mellon and Elizondo and all of those people helped formulate her thinking. But look, Gillibrand is not a ufologist, and you can read that amendment and see that really subject matter expert people were involved in the crafting of that amendment, and it blew through like you know what through a goose, and the president signed it, and here we are.
The idea, though, that over the last year especially, Lou Elizondo has been a pariah to many in this community. People questioning whether or not he even served in the military. Is he somebody who is actually, was in service? What was his position with OSAP, ATIP? We've seen all sorts of podcasts and groups go after him on a personal level, including a documentary made about him. Danny, I want to say this, or ask you point blank about a lot of the vitriol that many within the UFO community seem to have with Lou. I mean, we can't have this discussion without going down that road. And I'm curious, with about 2.5 minutes to go before we go to break, how did you feel about watching the negativity that was brought on by many in the UFO community towards him?
This has been from the start. It's nothing new. I've battled with a lot of people over the years about it. A lot of people changed their mind on Lou, and that's great. And Lou forgave them, and it's amazing. I think just every day he's going to get blasted. When you're a public person, I get blasted. I get death threats. I'm sure you guys do. I get weird emails. I have people giving out my phone number saying that they're married to me, all kinds of different things. That's insane. And I only can imagine the level that Lou is on, where it's happening to him, and it's horrible. And this is the guy that was used to wearing a vest, a bulletproof vest. And remember, he wore it to MUFON. That was when he was new. He wore it to the MUFON convention. So I think he's used to this stuff, and it's crazy, but it's also, we're all humans, and it's horrible. But I've just really been able to see him go directly to his biggest critics, get them on board with him, and talk to them on a human level. He's also kind of overexposed in a way doing all these podcasts, because he does get used on some of these podcasts, and then they make him kind of like a drama type situation. It doesn't happen with all of them. Some of them it's inadvertent. A lot of times it's inadvertent, and these guys do support Lou and they want to help. And then the kind of drama just happens. I did want to mention one thing about Space Command. Now, I'm not so sure that that's a new thing. Lou's been talking about for a long time. He's a contractor for the government. We haven't known why. This may have been what he's been doing for quite a while. And I think it just finally slipped out with Danny Sheehan. So I'm not 100% sure it's new. I don't know. I can't speak for Lou. I've never talked to him about the Space Command role. I don't know if he'd be even at liberty to speak about it, because he hasn't publicly yet, that's for sure. But I'm just really amazed by when Danny Sheehan said that. It gave us a lot of insight, and it's kind of making a lot of things click of what Lou has said about being a contractor for a long time. I'd like to hear his words on it now and his thoughts. I don't want to speak for him on it.
It's going to be interesting. That was a nice can of worms that we saw Danny Sheehan actually open up there in Lou Elizondo being a contractor for the United States Space Force. Is it about aliens? Is it about UFOs? Of course, it's got to be something about that. Jimmy Church from Fade to Black, Danny Silva from Silva Records, Science Bob McGwier. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio continues. When we return, more Elizondo talk, congressional hearings, NASA. We got a lot going on tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Stay tuned. The roundtable continues right after this. Jimmy, do you got a drop, or can you continue?
I've got dinner reservations at 10 o'clock. So yeah, I've got about 10 more minutes, and then I have to put on deodorant.
Let Jimmy go first when we come back.
Yeah. Okay.
Jimmy, I saw your Wendy's post. I like the food lineup that you had at Wendy's. You had the chili and the frosty and the sandwich. I'm feeling that. That was awesome.
I'm going to a Cuban restaurant in 30 minutes. I'm going to be throwing down.
Nice. I want me a Cubano right now. Yeah, I was going to support Danny. And look, I got offered 20 different pieces of work since I retired at Virginia Tech. And Gary, Reed, and others blackballed me in the Department of Defense, DARPA, and in the intelligence community. And every time somebody tried to turn me on, they couldn't turn me on because a canary had been put on my security file by that MFer, Gary Reed. I am no fan of his. I hope he goes right down a fucking drain.
Is this live?
Oh yeah.
I don't give a shit. I don't care.
Bob knows we're still on. We're still
I don't
live.
care. I hope he tries something. I'll get me a damn lawyer and I will go after his ass inside the Pentagon in the Inspector General's office.
Oh man, somebody's knocking on my front door already, Bob. Thanks. That took seconds. Wow.
Giant
man. Oof.
Dropping the gloves at center ice right there. Holy cow.
Man.
My clearance retired on May 6th because it had not been picked up in 2 years. I'm done. I'm over. I'm gone.
Apparently. Oh man. Okay. So let's get straight to the hearings when we come back off of the break, and then
That's good.
I'll check out at about 9:40.
Yeah, that works for me, man.
All right.
I appreciate you coming on in.
Oh, this is great. This is great.
Yeah. And your hair looks fantastic, by the way, tonight. I will say that. Beard looks tight.
What looks good is this new studio with all his guitars. I have really enjoyed all the guitar making and other stuff videos, Jimmy. That would have been great.
It's some guys paint wooden ducks.
Yeah.
I mess with guitars. You know?
And you have since you were a kid.
Yeah, definitely. I've got guitars in here that I've had for a long. So yeah, it's my passion. Yeah, definitely.
Jimmy, I got to ask, because you said on Twitter years ago that you had seen a different version of the Tic Tac video.
Did I say that?
Yeah.
I no comment.
Okay.
That's there's a lot of controversy behind that. And,
I'm going to tell you what, look, I have seen a bunch of stuff on the inside. I'm just not going to mention it on the outside. But the stuff I've seen on the inside, Jesus H. Christ.
Right.
And I can't fucking wait for that stuff to come out because it's bullshit. It's not out.
Did you guys see that new video on the debrief?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I saw with Dave Beatty's stabilization and enhancement, watch Dave Beatty's stabilization and enhancement. It's really interesting.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting video.
Oh my goodness. If we only had the perspective of another instrument or another video so we could get distances, because they look like they're doing these non-ballistic motion twirls around each other. They're awesome.
Now, Beatty is retweeting a bunch of people that are saying it's birds.
Oh, bullshit.
In his video.
That's baloney.
That was the point of Dave's enhancement, that it shows flapping. I'm not saying that. That's what they're saying.
Oh, okay.
You're on fire tonight. You're on fire tonight, Bob.
I'm PO'd.
I mean, the comment from the co-pilot, I mean, are those fast jets? All right. Well, I would think a co-pilot at that point, a moment of takeoff, knows the difference between buds. Right.
Look, he's the guy's in an Apache. He's full of radars. He knows it's not a bird because it has too high a cross section. He knows from the instruments in his bird.
So, Dave,
right, well, it's 10 seconds here. Going to get you to hold on here, and we are going to make it go. And Bob, no more F-bombs.
No, I'm PO'd. Whatever. I won't do it on air.
Bob's getting rowdy tonight.
Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Good to have you back. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate it. I want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot. Read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We're going to get right to it here because Jimmy Church has to leave here in about 10 minutes. He's got to go do his hair, trim the goatee, make sure he's looking styling and profiling for a little bit of hot dinner tonight. As we got Jimmy Church, Danny Silva from the Silva Record, Science Bob McGwier, and our resident artist, Dirty Filth, who's painting away up there, looking good. And let's get to the U.S. congressional hearings here, gentlemen, because this was a movement. This was something that, we didn't expect much, and I'm still on the fence 50-50 with it personally, but I can tell you this. The minute swamp gas was introduced once again as a potential thought of what these craft may be, I went, oh my God, here we go from 50 years ago. Jimmy, what was your take on the U.S. congressional hearings and what you think is going to happen moving forward?
Well, we have to look at this in a very serious manner. Last summer, when UFOs were mentioned in the press room at the White House, live on television, I about fell out of my chair. And I can guarantee you that was the first time in the history of this nation that UFOs were mentioned in the press room, live on television from the White House. And that was a big moment. And what went down last Tuesday was equally as huge, because never before have we had Roswell, ET, extraterrestrials, Malmstrom, the Wilson Davis doc, UFOs, craft, all discussed in a public hearing live. And now, no matter how we look at it, that's just huge. The discussion has started. Now, no matter what, I don't care if you thought the hearings were great, if you thought the hearings were bogus, I don't care what side of the fence you are on. We can never be satisfied. I don't care how perfect that hearing was, that they announced ETs are here and disclosure is here and Roswell was real. If we would have gotten all of that last Tuesday, that wouldn't have been enough either. Okay, so no matter what, we can't be satisfied. We need more. We can't come off of that and tell the House of Representatives and let Congress know, let the Senate Intelligence Committee know that that was good enough. No, we need to continue to have more hearings. So as great as it was, and I loved every second of it, I thought it was just amazing, but it's not good enough. We need the layers of the onion, just to repeat something that is said so often. But when it comes to UFOs and ET and contact and what is going on with this beautiful blue planet of ours, those layers are complex and deep, and they involve so many different things. And it can never go down in one hearing or two or three. We have to have break-off hearings, subcommittees, looking at different elements of this. It's too complex of an issue. And the other part, and this is a very serious thing, if Roswell starts to really get discussed. And we look back at 70 years, and now the government is going to have to do a reveal of knowledge of 70 years and the possibility of technology of 70 years. This opens up litigation and lawsuits and issues from the petrochemical industry all the way over to abductions and trauma. It's too much too soon. So baby steps. Last week was great. We're going to have more hearings, and they need to be more concentrated on specific subjects. And it's going to be interesting who is going to be called to testify. And is the civilian element going to be brought forward? If they want to continue with the military aspect of this, which I understand if they do, but then I would expect John Burroughs and Jim Peniston and Colonel Halt to be brought forward to discuss Rendlesham. That's a military case with military paperwork. We have the debriefings that went on before. We have the 3 days of activity and sightings. And we have the paperwork and the follow-up and the reports that were done. So there's everything there to ask questions for whoever, whether it's representatives in Congress and the House of Representatives, or whether it's senators with the Senate Intelligence Committee. But it's who is going to be called forward. I would like to see Avi Loeb. I would like to see the science element brought into this, astronomers, astrophysicists. But that's another type of hearing. Right? Do we bring the Japan Airlines pilot forward? Do we bring Callahan from the FAA, who spoke out about the Japan Airlines incident and sighting in Alaska? That's another type of hearing. Do we bring MUFON in? Does MUFON go through their case files and all of the evidence that they have from citizens and do that? See, you can't do all of that in one hearing. And that's why last week was so important. It was so important for the country to at least get the ball rolling. And there's one more thing before I do have to run. I felt a weird bipartisan friendship thing, right? And I was like, these guys are acting like they're getting along here. And that's because this is a subject that isn't divided along party lines or religious lines. This is an Earth situation. This is Earthlings. This is about our planet. And that really made me feel pretty good that the concern came from both sides of the aisle and they want to get to the answers. One last thing before I go. Burchett at a post-conference, when he turned to the cameras and said, this is a cover-up by our government, and the people need to get the answers. The cover-up needs to end now. And think about that. He just said this was a government cover-up, and we had to get to the truth. That's what the hearing brought us last week. And I'm very happy and very proud. So, hey, Dave, thank you for bringing me on tonight. You guys are the absolute very best. Danny, Science Bob, stay crazy, my friend. And Dave, get a haircut, okay?
Hey, I can only look half as beautiful as your hair today, man. Sorry. I apologize. But we'll talk soon, my friend.
You guys behave.
All right, Jimmy Church from Fade to Black, everybody. Thank you so much. Let's talk a little bit about what Jimmy stated here, Danny, as we continue on here on Spaced Out Radio's Roundtable tonight. Danny, you know, the hearing saw a lot of passion. You know, if you look at Representative Gallagher, he went right at him about the Wilson documents, about what happened at Malmstrom, and the panel of Bray and Moultrie really didn't seem to know how to handle those situations. Now, I've later heard Lou and others state, look, they're brand new to this portfolio. We got to give them a chance to get up to snuff and up to speed with everything. But in that situation, should they have not been more prepared?
They did horribly. The nice guy in me says maybe we should cut them some slack, but no, we're not going to. And if you listen to anyone who's listening to Coast last weekend with George Knapp, I was on with some of my friends like UFO Joe and Brian Robbins, and then Jeremy Corbell stopped by. We all have been kicking around a lot of these ideas. Why did they show the green video? They didn't show the radar. They didn't show the deck footage, and they didn't show the thermal footage. We've been kicking this around for a while. And it doesn't matter if it's birds or UFOs or what's going on, but we need to know who's controlling these things, right? I mean, what is it? Is it another government that's controlling them, or what? Or do they know the answer to that? If you ask them, they're going to say no, they don't know the answer. And as far as Jimmy bringing up the list of people he wants to see, there's people I want to see too. My friend group also talks about this a lot. We want to see Lou Elizondo, of course, Lukatsky. What about Dave Fravor, Underwood, Colm Kelleher? I want to see Jay Stratton, who we haven't heard from at all. He was the previous director of the task force. He was one of the good guys that, and the story goes, he allegedly got canned. They brought in someone else to kind of shoot themselves in the foot. And I'd like to see George Knapp as well, and a host of others, Chris Mellon. And there's another thing that we've been kicking around also. Jeremy has a lot of firepower. He's talked about it. He's talked about having a witness that saw these drones or UAPs, whatever you want to call them, shoot off into space. So, and there's a lot of talk about amnesty and immunity. So if these sources get amnesty and immunity, they bring them into the hearings, it's possibly game over. Jeremy's probably going to release all this other stash of videos he has.
Well, I mean, something has to give. Something has to happen as we move the ball forward. And I'm like you. I would love to see Elizondo testify. I'd love to see Mellon. I would love to see Lukatsky and maybe even Rodriguez. I'd like to see Robert Bigelow brought in, for all his work and everything that he's done. Bob, give us some names that you would like to see moving forward in the hearings. Who would you like to see testify?
Look, there were two great authors to witness to Roswell. And those two authors did a fantastic job of documenting dates, times, places, people on the record about what happened in Roswell. And the principal reason for bringing them forward is we got to puncture a hole in this crap that UFOs began in 2004, because that seems to be the plan. Let nothing happen before 2004. And it's what Danny's saying, because they hadn't figured out yet how to do amnesty for all the crap that went on in the 1940s and 50s. And there were multiple witnesses that are still alive to the flyover of the Washington, D.C. area, including the Capitol building in 1952. So there are lots of those kinds of witnesses. I'm sure they're being told this. But again, I changed my opinion of the hearing. Everything that Jimmy outlined is true. All of these major things are now part of the federal record. And the other thing is, these ripples in the pond are going to bring out other witnesses who are willing to testify. And the other thing we want to be reminded of is wasn't just Burchett, who is not on that committee. It was a bunch of people who were on the committee complaining about they didn't get what they were after. And they will roast some fires and take some chestnuts and roast them and bring them in and ask the right questions. So these Congress critters and the senators are going to get input for what questions should be asked and who to ask them from. And again, I'm with Danny and Jimmy and you and others, but I feel sorry for those two guys that had to come forward. They were let go in front of Congress ill-prepared. And there had to have been plenty of people inside the Pentagon that could have prepared them and just didn't.
Do you think that this was done on purpose?
Yes.
By the advisors of the Pentagon to make them look stupid like that?
No, I think it's a delaying action. It's a delay. So if they don't know anything, they can't say anything, they can't lie, then things are stalled. And it's really, I keep going back, it's the period before 2004 that has the Air Force and others deeply afraid. And I think we just got to figure out how to puncture that veil and get a few facts on the record, and then everything will break open.
Danny Silva, we bring you in here in regards to it. I mean, Representative Gallagher really caused a stir during the U.S. Congressional hearings. He went after the Wilson documents. He went after the UAP versus nuclear weapons at Malmstrom. He went after a number of things, and he wasn't done. And he went on a podcast, the Pat McAfee podcast show, and then he starts talking about how we don't know where this is from. We don't know if it's time travelers. We don't know if it's extraterrestrial. First time I've heard a politician use the word ultra-terrestrial. I mean, he is all in, balls out on this subject, trying to get the truth as to what's going on. What was your opinion of Gallagher there? I thought he was the strongest one.
Oh, it was amazing. I never thought in a million years I'd hear the Wilson Davis notes get brought up. It was one of the top comments ever, I think, in ufology. One of my personal favorites. It was just the greatest thing. I don't know. It was surreal. It was really surreal. And it was such a dichotomy between the witnesses speaking, basically to me lying, or at best trying to confuse things. Like I said, why were they only showed the green video? Why were they only doing that and not showing the rest of the stuff? And they're denying everything else. There's been other stories. Robert Salas has came out and said that he's told them about this kind of thing, and then they're denying it, that they don't know it. They're talking about there's no other programs, and they're using code words and keywords maybe to skate around this stuff. But I think the big thing, one of the bigger things here is, like I was saying with the amnesty and the immunity of these witnesses, what do you guys think would happen if they just bring everyone in? Jeremy comes in, releases his videos. There's other sources coming in. I mean, do you guys think it's game over? What's going on at this point?
Bob, I'll let you take that one.
So if they brought those people in and under oath they are required to reveal who their sources are, then it's game over, because they will call the sources, they will put them under subpoena, and they will testify or be in contempt of Congress. And they will relieve them of the orders they have been given by their chain of command, because Congress is the people's representative, and the armed forces work for the people, not for the generals. So I believe that can be done if they had the courage to bring those people forward, Knapp, Jeremy, others that had real details. They could break open a ton of doors. And I just think that there's some kind of engineered soft landing occurring right in front of our face.
Well, I'm very interested to see where it goes, because, I mean, let's face it, the Wilson documents they're a sore point for me personally on this show, and many people know why. I've kept it kind of behind the scenes, but on this show we haven't paid much attention to them because of the way they were leaked out. And
I'll say it out loud. Dave had it first, and he got clipped. Okay,
that's pretty much true, 100%. But nonetheless,
wait, you had the Wilson documents first?
Oh, way ahead.
I did not have them personally. The story was told to our audience that I knew about them. They were going to break on this show, and then a certain person ran to Richard Dolan with the documents, and then jumped on a bunch of different podcasts within days of this happening. And when I called them out on it, I was told that, I can still come on your show and talk about it. I said, no, you screwed our audience and you screwed this show. So we're not interested.
I know who gave him to Dolan. We had him for like a year before that, though, and we just didn't want to burn Dr. Davis and these guys. But that was our personal choice. I don't know. It goes way back. That's all water under the bridge kind of thing.
So Dolan had part of them, and I know, and others who are insiders with Dolan, where he got them, but he did not have all of them until late. Dave had all of them before Richard Dolan did.
Yeah, so did we. One of my friends gave one to Dolan, but I think the bottom line with the Wilson Davis stuff is, I doubt a lot of the things that the program manager supposedly told Wilson. I don't know if any of that, or some of it sounds true. Other parts are kind of hard to believe. But I think the bottom line here is everyone across the board is saying that there's tech in private industry, Lockheed and other companies like this, and that a lot of big honchos in the government, they don't have access to it. So to me, that's the bottom line of the Wilson Davis documents. That's why it's so important that it was brought up in the hearings. And then I think that's what I want to drive home to people. Yep. They can pick apart because, in the notes, they said there's no abductions and things like that. That's hard to grasp. But the bottom line is there's these IRADs and these USAPs and all this other stuff. They're in private industry. I was just tweeting about it the other day. We've been talking about it for years. Harry Reid has talked about Lockheed Martin. It was in Close Encounters.
Out loud. He spoke that name out loud right before he died.
And they had the Lockheed crates and Close Encounters of the Third Kind. That was 1977. So this is going back decades and decades that this has been out there. And someone needs to do something about it because they're hiding this stuff, from the public.
Well, the one thing I wanted to get with the Wilson documents is, I believe they're real. Bob, you believe they're real. Danny, you believe they're real. We know that many others like Joe Mergia have been pushing this forever, and he strongly believes, due to his conversations with Eric Davis, that they are real as well. But the idea that they are technically unconfirmed, that Gallagher getting them put into the congressional hearings as evidence without them being confirmed yet, I think it's fantastic. I really do think it was fantastic. It was ballsy. It was entertaining. And then we have, I believe, Admiral Wilson coming back out and saying, as we got about 2.5 minutes to go here before we go to break, coming out and saying his denials that it ever took place again. I think it's covering his own butt, but that's just me. How do you guys feel about Admiral Wilson's denial recently?
Put him under oath.
I'm scared because, I saw these witnesses, and Lou was talking about this to Ross Cohart. The witnesses in the hearings a week or two ago, they really were backing themselves into a corner, like for legal action, because they were really denying a lot of stuff. I don't know how they were able to do that and get away with it. And now Wilson is doubling down. I'm worried he's going to come on the stand and lie. So, I used to think it was like a big deal if you lied during these hearings. Now, after seeing these UAP task force guys, I'm not so sure they're worried about it, but I hope they are. And Lou was pretty ecstatic that they had brought up the Wilson Davis documents. It kind of, if you read between the lines, he's never technically commented on it, but he looked pretty happy about it when he was talking to Ross Cohart. So I think we can kind of, understand what he thinks about that kind of thing. But the private industry having this stuff is probably one of the biggest stories and the biggest leads in general. And that's really what that's the biggest egg to crack. One of them, I think, not only the government programs, but the private industry programs that are also partially funded by the government. And it's not just one huge company like Lockheed. It's multiple companies. It's been going on for decades and decades, and the public needs to know about it.
Yeah, the way these SAPs work is they divide things into tiny little blocks, and they're going to put the tiniest possible functional block in different companies. This keeps them separated, so no one has all the pieces.
No, very true. Very true. And one of the things is, we got about 30 seconds to go. We'll take this on the roundabout here, is does immunity for somebody like Admiral Wilson, who's obviously trying to protect his own ass on this, would immunity be enough to allow him to come out and say, yes, what we discussed with Eric Davis is real?
I think the guy is worried about his positions on a bunch of board of directors and the companies he's advising. So I think the guy is caught between a rock and a hard place. He has some serious conflicts of interest. If the documents are right, he was threatened.
Right on. Danny Silva, Science Bob McGwier. We're going to bring in the fedora-wearing John Hudson, and I'm going to see who else may come on as we continue on with Spaced Out Radio tonight and the SOR Roundtable. We'll be back right after this.
I'll be right back.
Yeah. Bob, you got the show. You can take the questions. I'll be right back, Bob.
All right, man. Boy, it took chat 30-something seconds to catch up. I couldn't read any of it. So much of it was flying by. Hey, Lazarus Project. Oh, I'd love to see the Air Force get in there and be put under oath. Well, Carl, it's kind of hard to know what the deal is with the Space Command. I mean, I don't know the real reason behind Trump's formation of the Space Command, except a lot of our adversaries are trying to take our spaceborne assets off. So the space is now a war-fighting domain because our adversaries are trying to take out our spacecraft, which are vital to our operations. Hey, World Bigfoot Radio. Listen to Julie Farrell. Go to spacedoutradio.com for all your SOR needs. Hey, Danny, you're sneaking into the chat room. Of course, there's evidence of Space Command. I can take you to where their offices are in Huntsville. I am not the new Lou. I am not. I know, because I do not have any of his experience or knowledge that he got from being deep on the inside. He was in the office that managed the USAPs. Doug Shelby, I'm going to tell you straight up. The only thing people in the intelligence community and the Department of Defense can do until and unless whatever is operating the craft identifies themselves and says what they are about is treat them as a threat, a potential threat, because that is their job. It is their mandate. Yeah, I'm staying. I'm not going anywhere. Dave will have to throw me off of here, which he usually does. I got a little better than cheap coffee, Irish Lincoln. We used to have this multi-$1,000 Franke coffee grinder maker. It was pretty nice.
What's up?
How you doing, Fedora?
Doing good, man.
John.
Evening. Good to be on. Nice to see you, Bob.
See you, bud. I'll be right back.
All right.
Dave, you know what song keeps popping into my head now whenever I think about you?
Oh, God.
Blame Canada. Blame Canada. You know, from
all
South
our
Park.
fault. It's all our fault.
I don't know why, but like now, like that song starts playing in my head every time I see you.
Dave, I got an Oilers jersey I almost wore today. I know nothing about hockey, though.
You should be wearing that, brother. You
I got
totally
an Oilers jersey. I was going to wear it just for you.
Brother, you are on fire tonight. You're on fire. That, honestly, thanks for bringing some serious game tonight.
Thank you.
Agreed. Joe, if you ever want to experience hockey, try to see like a Bruins game, or like there's a couple cities where like even when they suck, the fans are ballistic, and it's actually a lot of fun.
Montreal, crazy.
Canadians don't play hockey. Well, not for Canada anyway. They play it for us.
Not anymore. Hockey isn't what it used to be. Oh, God. Oh, sorry.
Check this out, Dave. I got this for you. Actually, I've had this in 20 years.
That's beautiful. That's
nice. Yeah,
you know,
Danny definitely spends more time involved and interacting and intertwined amongst people that we talk about on this show than the rest of us do.
I know.
He just does.
I'm
Danny.
not writing as much. If I had all these days, I'm mostly just commenting and being a jerk on social media. So I've kind of transitioned a little bit, but
Yeah,
thank you.
but you're still interacting.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Gone back to some high quality trolling there, my friend.
no kidding.
By the way, the 5 bolts on that jersey are the 5 Stanley Cups that the Oilers won when they
Oh,
introduced.
really? All right. This
Yeah,
is
when
like
they-
an alternate, right? This is an alternate jersey?
I love that. Yeah, that was an alternate third
Todd
jersey.
McFarlane invented that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just like how it looked, to be honest with you. I know nothing about them.
No, that's a good one. That's a good one. All right, boys, we got about 30 seconds. I want to say thank you to Sally, Thomas, Walker, Bob, Carl, Ken, Jeremy, Jeffrey, Steve, Phil, Doug, and Walker for the amazing super chats tonight. It's a great way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. Thank you to all the veterans who have tuned on in for tonight's show. You always have a safe home here in our chat room as we are here 7 days a week. And, hey, if you like our show that much, we got a great store at spacedoutradio.com. where you can get some SOR swag. And don't forget the weekend shows coming on up. And Christina, thank you so much for that super chat. Very much appreciate you. Here we go.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We very much appreciate earning your listening ears on this beautiful night and on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hi to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live, Odyssey Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do us the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club, Kissel. Kissel is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the Clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on with the SOR Roundtable tonight. Danny Silva from the Silva Record. Science Bob McGwier is here. From our unbiased UFO report and after hours, John Hudson has joined us. And drawing away his beautiful cartoons is Dirty Filth, our resident artist, hanging on out with us. Gentlemen, let's start off with a question from Jeremy Corbell, who's tuning on in. Jeremy's beard is on par these days if you see him on camera. Yeah, very solid beard combination going on there. He's asking, what kind of evidence do you think would permanently tip the scale on the UAP topic? Bob, let's start with you.
I want to see a craft that cannot have been manufactured anywhere on the planet Earth. If we got that, who could deny anything?
Is it just about a craft?
No, it's not the only thing, but that would do it. I mean, Jeremy correctly. This is a great question. We could go round and round for a while. We could go from something as major as a craft to what is the least significant thing that we could show that would tip the scale forever. I think that Jeremy has a perfect question to run a half an hour.
Danny, what do you think?
Obviously, a craft. If we have one, I think we at least have large pieces. If we have a whole craft, that would be amazing as well. I think we may be getting closer and closer to what everyone wants to see, which is a clear video and an up close video. And we may be there if we get some of this amnesty and immunity for people like Jeremy and his sources. Other people with a lot of sources. If Lou gets into this hearing, it's going to be trouble. Even with Wilson and Wilson, when Wilson comes in, or Davis, I didn't know this, but apparently there's 3 answers they could give when they get asked a question at the hearing. They could say yes, no, or they could say, I can't comment on this on the open hearing, ask me in the closed hearing. So I don't know. I think we're getting closer and closer to this. And if there's the immunity and the amnesty and the right people in the hearings, it could be a lot of trouble for the people that don't want the secrets out.
You could ask Jeremy Corbell to come to Congress, and they could put him under oath and say, who are your sources and what have they told you? That would be enough evidence to tip a lot of scales.
Exactly.
Jeremy Corbell could do it.
I agree with you.
John Hudson, what do you think is needed to permanently tip the scale on the UAP topic?
I'm sorry. I'm still like uneasy over what Bob just said, because I've never thought of doing it in that direction, and it just took something that I always thought was beautiful and turned it into something actually a little bit scary, because I don't know what that would do to a lot of the reporters and journalists in America if that was the case. It's certainly an interesting solution, but essentially for me, it all comes down to essentially a SYNAC, right? That's what it has to be. It has to be something that I can send that something responds with, right? So whether that is an intelligent being where I can send some data and get some data back, or whether that is an operating device where I can send, even if it's a non-operating but semi-operating, like even if it was an operating device, I might be able to get enough from it to determine, right? But it has to be something where I can initiate a communication call and I can get a intelligible, or at least a seemingly intelligible response. And to me, that becomes the minimum characteristic for everyone. So all the videos are beautiful. They help move the conversation. They help move legislation. They help move minds, hearts, and dreams. And they do a lot of good for the people who are reporting it because they feel supported. So there's a lot of value to it. But fundamentally, it comes down to that handshake, that SYNAC.
I want to see personally a clear video, like you said, Danny. That's what I want to see. I want to see something that isn't grainy. I want something that is captured, that is up close, personal. Maybe one of those Tic Tacs that flew right in between the two FA-18 Hornets on the East Coast that we heard that report about. But if we can't get that just yet, I think the tip of the scale, like YJ Overlander in our chat room has said, an alien. I want to see an alien, because if we have a craft, there's going to be a lot of people out there that'll say, okay, that's human manufactured, that's Lockheed Martin, that's Boeing, that's Raytheon. There's going to be some sort of excuse that goes along with that. But if we bring out an actual alien, I think it's over. I don't think that'll happen. I think that's still years upon decades down the road. But for right now, that's my personal opinion. But how we could also break this open is if the mainstream media actually got into real investigative journalism again, like George Knapp, we could actually see some hard questions being answered, which would put actual pressure on the government to ask those questions, ask those tough questions. We're not going to hear the word swamp gas again. Okay, the media needs to dig in a little bit deeper. And when the word Roswell is brought up, for instance, we need to be asking, what happened there? Why did you send an entire platoon for a weather balloon?
Or an 18-wheeler on a target.
Exactly. So that is kind of where I'm getting that idea from on it. And, let's go back to the U.S. congressional hearings here for a few minutes, guys, because Tim Burchett was very outspoken, the congressman from Arkansas, about this. Tennessee, pardon me. Thank you. He was not on the committee, but he was fired up, Danny, regarding this. He said, we need to know from Roswell, not the Nimitz incident. We need to know from Roswell on up, release everything. Let us know. Let us as citizens make that determination and that decision on whether or not we want to believe this subject. I mean, look, whether you agree or disagree with his politics, we're talking UFOs, UAP, and potential extraterrestrial life here, gentlemen. And I'm curious, how did you feel about Tim Burchett being so loud about this subject, Eddie?
It's definitely not hurting. It's helping a lot. It's great. Also, I have some mixed feelings about him. Not only because of his politics and things like that, but he said himself he's kind of the least important, one of the least important politicians. I think he's kind of the weird guy in the corner. So I think it was more important to have Gallagher say some of that rather than Burchett. I don't know how influential he is. I don't know if he's going to be reelected and things like that. And that's from what he says about himself. That's not me saying it. I'm no political analyst. But I would just kind of it's great. What he's saying is great about the UFO topic. I wish he would stick to UFOs more. I don't know. I'm just really happy with what he's doing and what he's saying. I don't know if people are listening to him. I don't know if they care. I think they automatically think he's going to say some wild stuff. Gallagher, on the other hand, and these other guys, I was very impressed with, extremely impressed with. They couldn't have done a better job. Gallagher just obviously killed it, amazingly killed it. And now we got another question from Jeremy up here.
A good one.
Yeah. Jeremy Corbell again. If you saw a clear video of a UAP, what if it didn't look like what you expected?
Oh.
John, let's start with you on that one.
Well, I would actually hope that it wouldn't look like what I expected. I mean, that's kind of why I take issue with something you said earlier, Dave, about it being a ship being unidentifiable as non-Earth-based, because that assumes small gaps in technology and similar trajectories of that growth, which are not terribly likely. So the truth of the matter is that I would want to see something fundamentally different, something really, really, really different. And that's what makes it even more challenging, is because there's no analogy then for people to look at it and go, oh, well, it looks like this, therefore it's real. And that's why I think video is always going to be challenging, because it's you know, the real stuff probably is not going to look like anything you've seen before.
Bob, your call.
Okay, so if you saw a clear video and it was in the context of the congressional hearings and so forth, they can subpoena or call in subject matter experts who work for the military and the intelligence community, who could say, what's the deal with this UAP? Why are you even showing it to us? But it's got to be a clear video of a UAP that subject matter experts can say, man, this did not come from Earth, and give actual reasons. So if there's some subject matter expert reasoning that the UAP is weird, then it would be really interesting.
And I believe, well, just real quick, I believe Elizondo said that the video that was out there that he thought was a real UAP actually had scenes that were so close up you could actually see infrastructure.
Yeah.
In the bottom of the craft. That is the kind of detail that would make a huge difference.
Very
we
true.
have to be able to prove that it's not CGI, right? Every video that comes out automatically, it's going to be debunked the very first half hour it's out. So we need data along with it. That was why it was so important, I think, when Jeremy releases radar and thermal and things like that and other corroborative evidence. That's what we need with these things. We need to be able to prove it. It almost doesn't matter what it looks like. The look is kind of for the public, and that'll be a great tool for us when we have that, something that looks amazing for the public and for us. But really, we need to be able to prove it without a shadow of a doubt that it's not CGI. And I think that's where the big challenge is, and that's where the multiple videos and the data and the radar and things like that and the subject matter experts, the SMEs, like Bob was saying, come into effect. And it just has to be able to be proven without a shadow of a doubt. That's what we're fighting against. Let's be honest. The Tic Tac video was a smoking gun. It should have been game over, but it wasn't. And we just need more and more smoking guns to hit people over the head with. And we need better every time. It needs to get better every single time. It's amazingly challenging. I think these videos and this data and this radar does exist that are provable. I think it can happen. I think we're closer to it than ever. I think we're hearing hints about that. If we get some of this amnesty and immunity, I think it could actually happen. Otherwise, it's going to be an amazing leak that we can't necessarily prove, which will still be cool, but it won't be game over. But I don't know. It's going to take a lot to convince the public.
Before I get to G. West's question here, I want to just bring up one other point, gentlemen. These congressional hearings hit the ballpark right around the world. Every country was following this. Every country's media broadcasts on this. We now have news coming out of Canada, Australia, the United Kingdom, South America, China, Japan, coming out about what they are discussing. Up here in Canada, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we have 3 members of parliament bipartisan, once again, looking into UAP, saying, hey, we need to start taking this seriously. Maybe we should be building our own UAP desk. I mean, this is the impact this story is having around the world. And, hey, I'm all for it. I would love to see more coming out of Canada, out of other countries as well, because like everybody forgets, and we keep reminding them, this is a topic that is going to affect every one of the 7.8 billion plus people on this planet. There is no holding back on that. So the impact, Bob, that this has had on Canada, UK, Europe, Australia, South America, it's been huge.
It's been big because they feel released. They finally don't feel like Big Brother is telling them to be quiet. That's number one. Number two, stuff started coming out. So I now can roughly estimate that, sponsored by governments and corporations around the world, there are 600 or so serious scientists and engineers working on one single topic: anti-gravity. All over the world, real funded work. And that was shocking to me when I began to get the evidence. So I think all of this is having a big impact.
Danny, what's your thoughts? I mean, when all of a sudden you see governments like Canada, for instance, and political figures all of a sudden coming out talking about, we need to be getting into this more.
And there was also a story, and not only Canada, there's also the story about NASA today. Now, I don't know if that's true.
We'll get into that one. Let's get into that one a little bit later, if you don't mind.
Okay, yeah. And you can talk about any of these entities. They're almost getting the green light. I mean, they're lying. They've been doing it this whole time. But now it's like, okay for them to say, oh, we're about to start doing it. And that's cool. I'm glad that at least they're talking about it now. I mean, we know they're lying, and Canada and all these other countries, NASA, everyone's been doing it this whole time. But at least now they're admitting it and they're talking about it. So it's like we're seeing this green light happen in real time in 2022. And it's amazing. It's great. It's progress. I'm really happy about it. Now, there is another thing I want to bring up real quick about what's been going on too. I think there's still this tug of war and struggle with people that don't want this out. One of the things about that, Jay Stratton, the story goes that he was kicking butt as the task force director. He was doing a lot of amazing things, and then they transferred him out and brought in someone else that wasn't going to ask questions and do as good of a job. And I think, if that's not part of the IG investigation, there needs to be an investigation into that. Why are they trying to shoot some of this stuff in the foot? So I'm still worried about some of that going on. And with the witnesses at the previous hearing, it was like they brought in these guys and they're just trying to shoot everything in the foot. But the representatives weren't going for it. So there does seem to be a lot of pushback still, and it's concerning.
What about somebody like Susan Go? I mean, the way she has, played the whole Elizondo card, the whole UAP card. Could somebody like her get in trouble for trying to block this topic publicly?
Well, that's on the IG investigation is looking into everything that happened to Elizondo out of the senior offices in the Pentagon. So if she did something bad, then the IG will out it. And so my personal feelings are she is too far down the ladder in the offices she works in to be anything more than a mouthpiece, and so she wouldn't personally be in trouble.
How do you feel about that, John?
Yeah, I mean, look, it depends at certain levels, but fundamentally there has to be at some level a certain amount of amnesty for a spokesperson, right? Because I mean, they don't control what they say, They might be able to control their tone or certain things, but they're not, they don't have any drive. So I don't really. Now, I will say that I've seen some data that might suggest that there were overt actions that she took above and beyond the spokesperson stuff. And if that's true, then she could get in trouble for some of that. But I would be surprised if it's anything major. Because, the thing is, ultimately, we're not, there's no point in there's no point in like punishing people, right? Like, I mean, we want the data, we want the information, right? That's what we actually want. So, we want to be careful we don't, end up, scaring away a lot of good data by coming down too hard on people.
All right, let's get to G West question here. So we got about 4 minutes to go here on the roundtable before we have to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. And this is, do you think some senators like Gillibrand, Rubio are in the background advising Lou Elizondo when he should release his book? Will his book be the smoking gun for him to get called in to testify? Danny, great question here.
I'm hoping he's going to be testifying like in the next week or two. So I hope that doesn't have anything to do with the book. We're kind of in speculation territory about who's advising who. It seems like Lou, Mellon, a bunch of other people that are unnamed, maybe Jay Stratton, who knows who else, are advising the politicians because all of a sudden they jumped on this and they're using some of the same words and terms that we're hearing Lou and Mellon and the UFO community use, and all of a sudden politicians are using it. It's extremely surreal. It's insane, really. I can't believe how well they've been able to get the ear of these politicians. That's a whole story in itself, I think, about how we got the Gillibrand Amendment basically saying the same things that Mellon was asking for. I'm still waiting to see how it plays out, but we could see that wording and that effectiveness of the lobbying or whatever you want to call it. So I don't know if they're influencing Lou also. I'm sure there's some give and take here, but whatever's going on behind the scenes, it's working. That's why I say what Lou's done for all these past years, it's worked. Look at where we are now. I think we're probably in the no turning back area of this now. I just don't, we're also going up against the military industrial complex. It's a scary thing. I'm not so sure that they want this thing out. I know it's not a monolith and it's different people, but there's still going to be a lot of fight. And we saw that in the hearing, a week or two ago. And so I don't know what's going to go on, but whatever Lou was doing behind the scenes, whatever Mellon's doing behind the scenes, it's definitely working.
Science Bob, let's get your opinion on
that.
They
could bring in Lou and Mellon, place them under oath, and grant them immunity from prosecution based on anything they say in those committees, including violating their NDAs, and they are absolved.
Mm-hmm. And then it's game over, right? I mean, basically,
game over.
I hope so. They know where the bodies are buried, quote unquote. No pun intended, but maybe that pun works.
And so they can say, to the best of my knowledge, the following things are true, and here's the people you can talk to. By God, game would be over.
And just so I see a lot of people commenting about this, this doesn't give them amnesty from crimes they've committed, right?
No.
If they've committed a murder or if they've done, those are the things that there's no protection for that at all.
For the committee testimony.
But there is the SAP guys, and we are talking about giving them immunity and amnesty for previous actions as well, because some of these guys, were possibly breaking the law just by running these programs and operating them. And I'm not an expert on this, but this is what the sentiment has been over the years, that some of these rogue programs were kind of quasi illegal at times. So the amnesty and the immunity would be for them so they could come out and talk. We want to be able to hear from them and hear what they have and see what they got without them having to be worried about going to prison, or else they're never going to come out and talk.
No, it's a really good point.
I think the waived, unacknowledged special access programs are a valuable tool. And so part of the Air Force and other parts of the Pentagon, the intelligence community, don't want to lose that tool by realizing that the thing that's being waived is a lot of oversight. So lots of crap goes on without a lot of oversight. And if they lose that tool, it will be a big blow. And I think that's part of the reason they don't want to be talking about those things in these committees, because when you get done, you're not supposed to even say who sponsored it or who existed.
Gentlemen, I'm going to get you to hold on right there. We're going to go to break here on the radio side on Spaced Out Radio. Danny Silva from the Silver Record, Science Bob McGwier, Dirty Filth with his heart, and from the After Hours and Unbiased UFO Report, John Hudson. We continue with the roundtable when we return on Spaced Out Radio. All right, we're clear. We got 5 minutes. I'm going to go refill my water here. But just to our audience, we got over 300 people watching live right now, which is absolutely amazing. We are a live radio show, and I just want to let you know that we do have to take commercial breaks because of the radio side and time everything out. So if you don't mind, that's just the way we do things. We're a little bit different, but you guys who are watching get to see the entire behind the scenes of what we're talking about here that the radio side doesn't. So this is where you are getting to hear all of this. So Raz, we're going to get your question when we come back from break. I'm behind in the chat room by about 12 minutes. So we'll catch right up here in the next half hour. I'll be right back. I'm just going to go refill my glass, guys.
Bob, you might be able to offer a different perspective, but my understanding is that when you're involved in any of these programs, there is always a lawyer.
They are required. They are one of the required officers in every one of these programs is a lawyer. They are specified in the regulation.
Thank you. So that's what I wasn't sure if it was specified, if it was just cultural, but
called out.
And so what that means is you're not just talking about people who on their own decided it was legal for me to do this. They actually had their assigned legal representative telling them that it was legal to do it.
Yep.
To then go after them for that, that's not right.
Well, and the lawyers don't want to do the wrong thing though, because they don't want to be disbarred.
Oh yeah. Oh sure. No, and then that's the other thing is that there's all these existing systems, right? The systems that allow for things to get into Congress, systems that list for disclosure of their conspiracy to happen, and we're bumping into those systems, and depending on what condition we're in when we're into them is kind of like how well those systems end up running for us, and like so now we got this whole congressional thing running, and hopefully it turns out well, but it is a system that runs anyway. It's not like it was built for us, right? We're just hopping into it for a time period.
Oh, unfortunately, there's all these parallel systems that have been set up to handle that stuff. The parallel systems are set up there to foil the kind of oversight you're talking about. Sorry, Danny, go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. I was just jumping in. So Joe says, as Gary Nolan said, the immunity is limited if crimes are committed, and it's more than just keeping it secret illegally, then they won't just be forgiven. Because John brought up murders. Of course, we don't want anyone to be getting away with something like that, but at the same time,
there was even a law passed a while ago that you cannot classify something for the purposes of like personal embarrassment. I forget exactly how it's worded, but it's along those lines. But
look, you have to have a credible witness come forward and say, I have evidence that this is illegally classified, to have a classification authority declassify it. So in other words, there's a process that has to be followed, but it requires someone with access to come forward and say, this was illegally classified, and do it. So you can come in from the outside, but you still have somebody from the inside be willing to talk about it. It's painful.
And what you said about earlier about the fact they're just worried about certain things being exposed, that's one of the things they talked about in the Wilson notes, was that there was a previous time where an audit was being done and they bumbled into a bunch of stuff, and a bunch of stuff almost got exposed. And that's what created a lot of their paranoia, right? That's what dug them in. So of course they're worried about that sort of thing. That makes perfect sense, right? Because even if let's just throw numbers out. Let's say 20% of what they do is UFO based and 80% isn't, right? That 80% is critical, right? You cannot sacrifice that, right? So it's a challenge.
And I don't think any of us want to take away the secret programs. We know the government needs them, to hide things from other countries and stuff like that. But we still want the bottom line truth. We're not saying tear down America, and not that you were saying this, John, but we're not saying tear down the system, tear down America.
Right.
But we need the truth, and the public deserves it. And everything, if they're covering up, nature, which is basically if non-human intelligence or a breakaway society, time travelers, whatever you want to call it. Really, that's part of nature. It's part of the world, and it shouldn't be classified. So we need to know the bottom line about this kind of stuff. they can keep the secret programs. We know they need them. Of course, there has to be secrecy in the government to keep it running.
But I think for the kind of immunity and freedom to talk kind of stuff that John and you and I and Dave are talking about is there would actually have to be an act of Congress passed and signed by the President of the United States to make it happen.
Yeah, and everything needs to be kind of redone of how it's been operating, right? I mean,
totally redone.
Yeah.
10 seconds, guys.
Let's go.
Okay, thank you for all the super chatters. You guys are absolutely amazing. And I'll continue rolling through the chat room here. Here we go. We pass the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. I am your host all the way up here in northern Canada where the tundra is finally thawing. Want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on tonight with the panel of the fedora-wearing John Hudson from After Hours on Spaced Out Weekends, and Danny Silva from the Silva Record. Science Bob McGwier. Dirty Filth is continuing with his awesome art in the background silently, and we continue with the roundtable. Question from Raz coming up here, gentlemen. UAP are real, step 1. Success, it worked how? What is step 2? Danny, let's start with you on that one.
UAP are real. We know that. The public, hasn't necessarily accepted it. You ask the public and they say, of course it's real, but at the same time, they're watching sports and they don't really care. In a lot of ways. I think we still have a lot of work to do when it comes to the public. So we got to kind of we got to kind of define terms here about what we're talking about when we say success at work. I mean, we know it's real. I think it's coming to fruition, but we still have a lot of fighting to do. And the war isn't over. The game isn't over. And no, I'm not telling people to storm the government or anything like that. Anytime we say war, a bunch of these guys on Twitter say we're trying to instigate violence or something. And of course, that's not what we're talking about. But there is a thought war and a secrecy war going on behind the scenes, and it's obvious. And Jeremy has another question in the chat, too. Hopefully we'll be able to get to.
Yeah, we will definitely get to that as well a little bit later. Bob, step 2.
Oh, okay. So people need to pick up the phone and call their Congress critter. Call their senator, call their Congress critter, because that is who they listen to. They listen to the squeaky wheels, especially if you have donated money. If you're a donator and you talk to them, you're the squeaky wheel. They want to make you happy. The more of us that do that, the more we're going to get out of them.
John, final say?
Yeah, I think the challenge is I think that there's plans that were believed to be possible, and then there's a reality of the ground truth. And so I think that there's still, unfortunately, I think there's still too many variables to really know like what is even possible in a stage 2, because as people said, even if you consider stage 1 to be that isn't necessarily universal. So what sort of qualifiers do you use for it? But essentially what I would hope is that each stage would be a deeper dip for each group, meaning that at each stage the group that had dipped deeper last time would now be able to go deeper, and then a new group that was not able to get into the pool would be able to join. And so you'll have this kind of step function where you'll see this kind of, and so what you'll have is you'll have something that is substantially more than what we have now, right? And a problem with what we have now can be argued, right? But if you consider what we have now to be, let's just throw one out there. Let's just say videoed proof that that there are non-U.S. Entities at play, right? You take something that simple, and the thing is that depending on how you want to tear it and how you want to cut it, what that step 2 turns out to be could be a lot more determined on exactly the Congress critters' behavior, because Bob's dead on. That's essentially the carrot they follow. And so but it is an election year, right? So we do have the advantage that and this also should make you kind of take everything with a grain of salt with certain players, but really exuberant Congress critters tend to get votes. So this is a good time to be talking to them. But essentially, what that phase 2 is going to look like, my guess is it's going to be some substantial something, whether that is an identified off-world part, whether that is a more detailed video, whether and honestly, it could be other things too, because I think fundamentally, as long as you have like essentially 3 pillars of support, that's what you want for a data point, right? Like, so you want, as long as you get like three different sources of data, then you have something pretty solid. But what it's going to be, I think I don't see how you could predict it with any accuracy.
All right, let's go to Vaughn's question here. Do any of you know if photos of UAP are doctored to make them blurry before they are released?
I don't.
I don't think that they're necessarily doctored. I think some of the weaker ones are chosen to be shown. We know there's better examples. So I think that can happen.
I know what we do know is the really higher quality things that reveal our capabilities are not going to come out, because we don't want to reveal our sources and methods to our adversaries. That's just the way it's going to be.
Yeah, I think that's part of the reason why we're seeing so many cell phone videos, right, rather than actually taken. But then again, Jeremy had some pretty great videos come out too, and I think we're going to start seeing those as well. I don't know. We're really seeing a lot of hints now about better videos, and Lou keeps dropping it. Jeremy's talking about it. Everyone's talking about it.
It's coming.
Yeah, it really does feel like it. I hope so. We've been talking about it since 2017. At the same time, we've got a lot more videos now, just in the last year.
I just want to see the ones I saw. Let them come out, and we're done.
Mm-hmm. And something that was brought up to me about some of these is some of these law enforcement groups or intelligence groups, they're waiting for someone to leak them so they could throw the book at them. Not private citizens or journalists, but someone that has that NDA or has that clearance. They're waiting for them to leak it. And I think that's where the amnesty and immunity comes in.
Yep.
We also need witnesses, of course, that were there.
Yep.
I think there's plenty of witnesses out there, but I mean, the military witnesses, that's what we're focusing on. That's what we should clarify.
We need, when a video comes out, we need everything. We need the witnesses for it and the data, the multiple angles, all that kind of thing.
All right.
What's kind of interesting, though, is real quick, is that you could almost argue that everything that's come out so far has been stuff that requires you to look at second and secondary and tertiary data points to support it. None of it's been stuff where the primary video has been just enough for it to do. It'd be interesting if someone was really, really, really manicuring this whole process and they wanted to actually tease people into doing their own research and actually getting their hands a little wet. Intentionally not releasing crystal clear videos and then releasing auxiliary data and forcing people to review it to support what they see would actually be a very interesting way into manipulating behavior out of people.
It definitely would. Kim Gillen is asking, do you believe Canada didn't have a UAP or UFO desk before? No, Canada did not, as far as we know, have one the last number of years, literally since Wilbur Smith retired from his position. And that was back in like the 70s. Canada has a number of areas that are looking into it. The Department of National Defense is looking into it. Transport Canada is looking into it. NAV Canada is looking into it, which would be the equivalent of your FAA down in the United States. So there is a bunch of different genres that are looking into it, but they don't officially have an actual UAP desk at this time. So we are looking to see if that is something that will come out of it, led by Conservative Member of Parliament Larry McGwier, who coincidentally will be on this show on June 1st. And this will be his first public interview, long-form interview regarding the UFOs over Canada, especially nuclear power facilities in Ottawa, which I have recently learned that I believe earlier this week, he actually went and toured some of these facilities that are out there. So it's pretty incredible to see what is happening here with this. So I'm very excited to see where it goes. I'm sure you guys are as well. John, I know you and I have talked quite a bit about this.
Yeah, and the thing is that, I mean, I don't know, man. It's just so hard. I mean, the challenge is right now is that, you know, we're all in this situation where, you know, we all have our own personal stories, and we all have things that we want evidence for, and that we want, you know, comfort and confidence that, you know, because I mean, essentially, if you really look at like what's been going on, the U.S. government's been gaslighting us. I mean, fundamentally, right? And that messes with you, you know, it does, and it makes you second guess everything, you know, and you know, was that done on purpose? You know, who knows? But the thing is that I think that when it comes to other countries, I think that, you know, I mean, with Canada, I mean, the problem is that with other countries, you had individuals like Wilbur Smith, who we just got lucky. Right, like the right person got into the right position at the right place at the right time and was able to do some good, and we're lucky that happened. But it was, you know, it was very much a one-off thing, and I think that, you know, essentially over time, as you know, it's kind of like any kind of subsidiary system where essentially as our apparatuses get more complicated, it allows the freedom and the structure and the examples for other countries to then start copying that. And so I don't know. I mean, I think, I don't know. It's right now. It's just at this point in time, I think we're really at a point where a lot of different things could flip, and it could go in different directions.
I think every ally of the United States will end up setting something up, because I think they're going to have to.
They have to. And they have to. And the thing is, it's very much like what happened with Nick Pope, right? Whatever you want to say about Nick Pope, you know, he took it on, or at least thought he took it on, because no one else he thought was doing it. So that's what would happen in a lot of these different governments. You'd have these one or two people that were passionate about it, that would take it on as a side job, and hopefully maybe someday that would grow into one full-time job, and maybe that would eventually grow into 2 full-time jobs. And it's just very slow, you know, just edging through. But that's why things like this hearing is such a big deal, because I guarantee you there was a bunch of people that were getting turned down for real backing that were able to go back to those same people later this week and go, look, they're taking it seriously. Why aren't you?
Very true.
You know?
Very true. Let's get to Jeremy Corbell's question. Each of you have been on the UFO beat in different ways for quite some time. What question haunts you and keeps you up at night about a UFO reality? I would like to start with this one, if you guys don't mind. My thing is, Jeremy, is the question that I think we all need to answer. And this goes back to the assemblance of the To the Stars Academy. And that is, why now? Why, out of all these, after all these years, all of these decades of cover-ups, of ruining people, of making fun of experiencers, of the military denying everything that is going on, why is all of a sudden this topic the forefront of everything? Why did it have to come out? Why are they pushing it to come out? I have only personally been able to think of 2 credible, plausible ways. And maybe I'm being naive on this and forgetting some, and please forgive me if I am. But I think number 1 would be a false flag, alien event, which I don't believe. Or number 2, I think that maybe the United States government, and I'm going to put my tinfoil hat on here, I think the United States government was possibly contacted or picked up a signal from an alien species from wherever they are, and they gave a date as to when this is going to take place, when they are coming, not if, but when. Those are the things that keep me up at night, is wondering the big why now question. Because to me, after all the research, all the videos, all of the evidence, the people who've come out speaking, the congressional hearings, Elizondo, whoever it may be, it doesn't make sense to me why all of a sudden this is coming out. It doesn't make sense. Bob, let's go with you. You put yourself on mute there, Bob.
Sorry. It's well known that I come from the intelligence community. And so my perspective, given my lifelong context, is I worry about national security. And lots of what we are seeing, and Jeremy Corbell's own personal work and evidence, shows that these things are operating in and around our assets, our military installations, and so forth. You do not do that unless you are doing reconnaissance. You do not do reconnaissance unless you have a plan. So my thing that keeps me awake at night is this is like some entity that doesn't care, thinks we can't do anything, and is doing reconnaissance to figure out how to minimize the damage to all the resources they want. That keeps me awake at night.
How about you, Danny?
The reconnaissance thing is amazing, and I think that's probably something that a lot of sources would also agree on. That it seems like reconnaissance is being done. That's what a question that is, right? That's really hard to wrap your head around. Me personally, as far as what keeps me up at night, or what the craziest questions would be, and I like the green light. Why now question from Dave? That's really perplexing as well. But to me, it would be the more paranormal side of things. We know there's craft in the sky. That's kind of easier to digest, especially for the public. But the really scary things would be the paranormal stuff, the hitchhiker effect, some of the stuff we're seeing at Skinwalker, the experiencers having these abilities after it's happening to them, abductions, of course. We're talking about the real scary stuff that it seems like a lot of people pushing for this disclosure initiative kind of want to not talk about right now. That's maybe why OSAP has been there's been an attempt to maybe sweep that under the rug a little bit and focus on just, UFOs in the sky, the national defense aspect. And I'm not saying that's bad. It's bad to focus on the national defense. That's very important. But the extra scary stuff is the Skinwalker stuff, the hitchhikers, the abductions, people who get their lives ruined, that I can't speak about because I'm not an experiencer and it's never happened to me, but I definitely feel for these people.
So I want to quickly point out in support of Danny, we know from the DIRDs that were done under OSAP that they got all sorts of statistics. We know from several famous psychologists and so forth that work with experiencers like John Mack and others who have done all sorts of statistical analysis. And the number of experiencers in the United States is over 1 million people have had these weird interactions. And they are being made to feel miserable or talk like an idiot. It's way over 1 million people have had an abduction or something like it. That's a lot to not talk about and sweep under the rug.
Also, real quick, I'll just jump in. We don't know these numbers. Maybe the 1 million people that remembered it, maybe those are the ones that something went wrong in the process, and everyone else where it went right, they don't remember it at all. There's a lot of weird questions.
I think the 1 million is a conservative estimate. Everyone I talk to that does that stuff believes it's much larger.
John?
For me, don't get me wrong. Those are all wonderful reasons to never sleep again. But for me, it comes down to two things. It comes down to one is this, I think, realistic, but I think very unfounded assumption that whatever it is, there's only one faction. And I don't see that likely. And so I think so what keeps me up at night is the idea that there are, maybe 6, 10, 15, 20 different factions that have all had a hand in each one of these. And that's why there's no pattern. That's why it's all chaotic. That's why it's a mess, because essentially they've all been kind of playing with it. Who do you, at that point, who do you negotiate with? What do you do? Go to the strongest one? Come on. This gets really ugly really fast unless they've already self-organized, right? Which, possible. So that, and then the second thing, and don't get me wrong, there's a lot of other things that keep me up at night. I'm just trying to be polite. Is Millab. Millab scares the hell out of me. Millab freaking scares the hell out of me.
I want to add one more thing to this, is we got about 3.5 minutes here before we got to go to break at the top of the hour to finish off hour number 2 of 3. And that is, I got this from a very close source who's very close on this topic in the U.S. And that is, he posed a question to me. What if everything is the phenomena? Like Danny says, paranormal, cryptids, supernatural events, near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, alien contact, UFOs, astral projection. What if the phenomena is all one and it is playing us much like a god would? And that's what we're getting closer to figuring out and understanding that riddle. And as the puzzle pieces turn over from gray to actually colored, we're starting to see more and more effects of the phenomena being everything as one rather than separate, as ghosts are ghosts, cryptids are cryptids, near-death experiences are one thing. And I think, like Danny said, with the hitchhiker effects that are going on, what we're seeing at Skinwalker Ranch and the results that we hear coming out of there, and yes, it is hearsay, unfortunately, but I think if you add it all together, it shows that the phenomena A is very real and the phenomena is all interconnected. Would anybody like to comment on that? We got 2 minutes.
Well, I think there's direct evidence for that. And that essentially, if you take a lot of the feature sets of any one of these different genres and distill it down to its basic function, you will then be able to go across platform and see this same function replicated over and over and over. The hitchhiker effect happens in the Bigfoot world, right? We have evidence that there, but I don't think it's fair to go to the second stage and assume that just because it's all connected means that there's anything nefarious going on, or that there's any secret, trick player at work. I think I think there's a lot of very interesting, reasonable solutions having to do with our own inner selves that have to do with how this works, and have a lot less to do with some Loki-like entity that's intentionally trying to mess with us.
Danny or Bob, we got about 1 minute and 20.
Well, I think the most famous researcher in UFO for the last several decades is Jacques Vallée. And he was heavily influenced in his early days by John Keel. And they're all derivative of Charles Fort. And so their writings are clear. There are a bunch of different things that are interrelated, and Passport to Magonia and other things and on. Vallée writes very clearly about how all of these weird different things are interrelated. And the thing is, we don't know is how all of those things take action in our physical universe. And I think the commonality will be how they all use the same mechanism to interact with our universe. So it's discovering that is the important thing. Now, you and I both know, Dave, that Grant Cameron is really, really up on and working on and cares about consciousness. And I'd like to figure out how it works with all of the other physical fields.
All right, we have the roundtable for another hour here on Spaced Out Radio. The fedora-wearing John Hudson from the Silva Record, Danny Silva, and Science Bob McGwier. And when we return, we're going to continue with audience questions. I know there's a bunch in the chat room right now. We're going to try and get to the ball within the next 60 minutes here on Spaced Out Radio as we continue with the roundtable and enjoy Dirty Filth's work of art. Spaced Out Radio continues with hour number 3 coming up right after this. I am about 30 minutes behind in the chat room right now.
We're going to just have to build a time traveling machine, Dave.
What do you got for us there, Filth? Let me bring you up large here for a second.
Okay, there we go.
We got 5 minutes, right, Dave?
Yes, we do.
Cool.
We got Team Stump. Dave's asking Science Bob what we're going to see next. And Science Bob's like, maybe some more insiders. And
take it away, Filth. You're the captain right now. Be right back.
Everybody's whiskey rations have been halved. So, anyways, and then we have the Man in Black. We got Butch Wachowski on the table there, and the Tic Tac Triangle. Bob Lazar S4 sports model, and that's it. Dave just left me here. Unbelievable. Luckily, I've got a computer ready, so we can look at the chat room. Apparently, I'm like 6 minutes behind the chat room, so it's probably that internet lag stuff. Thanks for leaving me here, Dave. Unbelievable. I can entertain your audience. Vaughn. What are we? There's Vaughn Patrick. We got to go for a brewski, man. Let's talk about them behind their back. Yes. I heard Dave secretly eats breakfast in the middle of the night. He gets up and sneaks into the kitchen and has breakfast. Fidgety. Thanks, Black Dragon. Thank you, Cindy. Oh, I wish I had a pizza. You're waiting room with the dentist. I don't see no drawing going on. Yeah, I know. Unbelievable. Dave left me here, so I'll just ramble as I draw. It's his own fault. Get the old detail brush out. Oh, if I'm going to draw, I got nothing to say because I just go into the zone, so... Enjoy, weirdos. Oh, excuse me. Let's switch the old number 3 for the Butchkowski. Dave's gonna take an extra long break at that. So for the show, it rained a whole bunch and soaked the entire art studio. It was interesting. Luckily, nothing exploded and none of the watercolors were damaged. So all is well. Here's Butch in his frame. Isn't that nice?
And I ask all of you to stick around. We are going to have a surprise guest coming up here momentarily.
Surprise guest.
Tim McMillan from The Debrief is going to join us here in a few minutes' time to join the conversation that's going on here tonight. And I think this is going to be absolutely epic. What an epic night this is turning out to be.
It's fantastic. Jimmy did great. I think we've done okay. Danny's been awesome, and John and I have been hanging in there.
Yeah, Jeremy in the chat room firing
Jeremy Jeremy, next time bring him on.
Well, I tried. He was texting me, and he's spending some time with family the next few days, but he's enjoying listening in tonight. He goes, I never get to listen in. He goes, so this is absolutely great for him to sit back, put his feet up.
No, he was a big, huge influence on the quality of the show.
Yeah, very much.
Grateful to have him in the chat room.
Maybe I'll add him to the Christmas card list.
Yeah, send him a Christmas card.
You got to make the beard quite thick on that, like your chest hair, though, Dirty Filth.
Which beard on where?
On Jeremy Corbell.
I've never drawn a picture of him, so. Maybe one day. I actually tried to send him one of my drawings. I messaged him. I was like, hey, you want? It was my guide to UFOs. And I drew the, like, triangle that they're like, oh, this is all bunk or whatever it was. But I drew that and they called me Corbell. It's somewhere, right? It's in a pile somewhere.
Oh, well.
Find it.
We got 20 seconds, guys. 20 seconds before we're coming on back here.
Dave, you owe me a beer for covering for you.
Hey, okay.
Hey, deal.
That works.
I'm going back to quiet mode.
Okay.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Here we go with the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears around the world and on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. What do you got for us, Clam? Kissel. Kissel is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on tonight with the roundtable as we have Science Bob McGwier from the Silva Record, Danny Silva and his high and tight beard, John Hudson, the fedora-wearing wonder, hanging out with us as well. We're going to have Tim McMillan from The Debrief join us here momentarily as well. Let's start with a question from Eddie. Do you think more politicians believe in otherworldly beings but stay quiet due to fear of being ridiculed and their political careers ending? Bob, let's start with you on this one. We'll get you to unmute, Bob. Yeah, you're having a heck of a time.
Oh, man, I'm telling you, it did not want to unclick. I don't know why. Anyway, okay, so there's a lot of that. So there are lots of politicians in the United States that come from extremely conservative and religious districts. And so they're constantly worried in those districts about what their constituents think. There are a lot of senators and Congress critters that come from extremely affluent districts, and they mostly work for the people that fund them. So they mostly want to get donors to help them get reelected in these really expensive campaigns. So they're worried about fouling up their nest egg that will get them through the next election. So I'm just telling you, there are multiple reasons, but I believe that this is changing, because the slow reveal from 2017 forward has mostly changed what people believe. And so now I think it's widely assumed, if you believe the polls, that the vast majority of the constituencies in the United States believe these things are real.
John, your thoughts?
You're muted.
You're muted, John. We lost your microphone there, John.
There we go. Yep. There, now you can hear me, yeah?
Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry, I had it turned off. Yeah, I'm sorry. I got distracted by his question, but what was your original question?
The original question, do you think politicians believe in otherworldly beings but are staying quiet due to fear of being ridiculed and their political careers ending?
Look, all political people have to live dual lives, right? They have what they personally believe, and then the caricature of themselves that they have to create that maps to their constituency. It's the whole reason why when they get older, you start hearing them talk about themselves in the third person, right? It's actually not necessarily a good thing, but the third person model is a good self-defense mechanism. I don't want to say anything negative about that. Brain smart. But essentially what you have is a lot of people who will essentially personally believe it for one reason, but they will still disbelieve it in their alternate mind, and they will still have to be proved. They'll still have to be proved that's correct by an outside party, and then at some point they'll find themselves stitching it back together in their own minds. It's really funny how it works, right? And so essentially, there's going to be people that have pressure to not spread it for religious reasons. There's going to have people that have pressure not to spread it just because it's seen as a waste of money, right? And there's going to be people who who essentially have had personal experiences, but then there's also going to be regions where there might be, for example, an actual constituent of people that actually really do want something to happen, right? Like I'm going to guess maybe like the Roswell community. I don't know, right? So you could have districts where you could have essentially representatives who are getting authentic pressure from within their own communities to essentially speak up about certain topics. And that's really what you want, because that's the most natural, organic stuff. And I don't know if that is really happening yet. I think that's happening in spurts and starts, because like the phone home thing. But I don't think a real engine has begun. And I think essentially what we're doing is we're doing the other half as a way of kind of like jump starting the engine sort of a thing. And so I think that's kind of how it plays out.
All right, Danny, final word on this one.
I've said this a bunch of times in interviews and things like that. I used to write a blog every time a politician would comment. It was like a huge deal. Now it's kind of almost commonplace where we're hearing politicians commenting on the UAP subject. It just goes to show you what all's been accomplished and the forward momentum we've had. Of course, there's still a lot of the stigma that we need to break down. I think more and more politicians are realizing that they can comment on it. There's still probably a million of them that don't want to because they think they will be made fun of or not taken seriously. So it's just this process that we're going through. These hearings are playing a good part of it. There was still some tongue-in-cheek jokes at the hearings, which are unfortunate. But yeah, there's just this process that we're going through now. And it's not only from the public or from aviators or from military members, but of course it's also from politicians. And it's a great point.
What do you say? You didn't like Little Green Men and Swamp Gas coming up in the conversation?
And they were asking him if he was like a sci-fi fan, right? I mean, come on.
I hear you.
I'll tell you, the thing I hated most was the congressman talking about throwing everybody in jail that opened their mouth about anything. That guy really, I got mad.
Absolutely. All right. Raz is asking, guys, we're going to have to speed it up here a little bit because we're way behind right now. What's the technical legislation involved in writing up immunity for these folks? Bob?
That is a really complex question because each group has a different context. So it is really going to be difficult to write blanket immunity, I think, because they're going to worry about unintended consequences of whatever legislation they write. So that's just too complex a question for us to deal with in a few minutes. And it's going to take a team of lawyers and a bunch of other folks to get through it.
Yeah, you could have a situation. You have a situation where it works for the DoD but doesn't work for the DOE, right?
Right.
So I mean,
Right.
there's so many divides that could get really complicated.
Yeah, there's difference between Q and TS. SR.
Yeah. Drastic.
Question for Bob from Skilly. Can you clarify that the letter you saw showed correspondence between Admiral Wilson and Dr. Eric Davis? You spoke about it on Grant Cameron's show.
I saw a letter that was written by Davis, and that is about the length and breadth of what I can say, except it spoke about the things that Davis covered in his notes. And Wilson was looking for information, and I didn't even remember it until I had looked at a date book and saw an entry. So I'm just telling you, this is just another piece of evidence that to me says there's really something going on in the Wilson docs. And this is not evidence of exactly what it was, but it was evidence he cared.
All right, let's get to Jeremy Corbell's question. And Danny, we'll start with you. Would amnesty and immunity be more important for those who were silenced with NDAs by those running the UAP exploitation and study programs for the U.S. military, or for those who control the programs?
I think they're both important for different reasons. I would say give them to both of those people. We just want to hear what they have to say, but we definitely need the people with the NDAs to be able to speak.
Definitely. John, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, one thing I think is interesting is I think I may have mentioned the other day is I was listening to this 1996 interview that Art Bell did of Dr. Edgar Mitchell, and Edgar Mitchell actually talks about amnesty with Art Bell in that episode back in 1996. So it's not to say that this is really a new topic, and so that means there has been time for people to chew on it and look at different angles and so forth. Because I think that what you just mentioned is a perfect example in that I'm all for giving amnesty to government people who were put into tight spots and had certain requirements put on them. However, as soon as it goes from research to application, and it goes from there to the private sector where it's actually getting applied into whatever, I don't want any amnesty on that side. I don't want any of that touched. I don't want any of that. I want that completely left alone. That's national security. And so everyone's going to feel differently about where that line should be. They'll feel the line should be pushed into there. They'll feel the line should be pulled back from there. And so I think everyone just kind of falls into a different place, and so it makes it hard.
Bob.
The controllers have all of the facts at their fingertips. So if you get one of those people out and give them immunity and order them to talk, it would be explosive. But you probably are going to need to get a few people with their NDAs to come out, because the thing the NDA does, it explicitly tells you cannot talk about the sponsor or who is in control of things. So if you want to find out who they are, you need to have some of the people with NDAs tell you who they are under amnesty and under subpoena. And once they are able to tell who people are, then Congress can go after the bigger fish. It's the usual prosecutorial thing. Start with a little fish and go up.
Kim is asking, why do the governments have to? Why do USA allies have to start investigating UFOs? Why not just let the USA do it?
75% of the world is not the U.S.
Well, I think it also goes that every country has their own aerial programs, whether it's military, whether it's in the water along oceans or lakes or seas. I think that every country obviously has their own airline and pilots that are flying around, people who are having experiences. And I think, once again, this is something where the more data they can collect and collaborate with, I think it makes it easier for everybody to understand maybe what is going on.
Yep.
Anybody else want to comment on that?
Yeah, well, I think that there will be countries that don't want to. either they have some sort of a cultural reason to resist it, or they have some cultural reason to not even feel it's needed, right? You might have a situation where they're just so resource constrained that it's just not a priority for them, right? So we have to leave it open for the fact that there will be some government, some communities that it's just not a big deal to them, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. For those that want to investigate it, for those that find it interesting, for those that find it compelling, either out of raw curiosity or because of personal experience, the more the merrier. And the thing is that if you do care about it, the reason why you want to be researching it is because, very bluntly, you don't want to trust us straight out, because we are always going to be presenting things in the best light for us. Right. Obviously people try really hard to be as fair as they can be, but let's be honest, right? Governments, do that. So if you want to see the UFO data in the most unbiased light that you can possibly get it, you're probably going to want to do some of that research yourself. There's value to that, especially field work.
And it's extremely hard for me to believe that any superpower or major country hasn't already been doing it for decades. I think now they're just starting to admit it, or they're lying and saying, hey, we're about to start doing it now, like NASA. But they already are. And if they want to be have security in their country or have any kind of idea of power, then they've already been doing it for decades.
All right, let's get to Raz's question. Hal Putoff, Dr. Eric Davis, who are these folks, and are they on our side? Danny, you want to start with that one?
I think they're definitely on our side. I think they put themselves out there for ridicule and made them public people and been targets because they're passionate about a subject that a lot of people didn't want to look at. Not only that, Dr. Putoff's been doing this for a very, very, very long time. And Dr. Davis has as well. But Dr. Putoff, he's up there in age now, and he's dedicated his life to this. And these guys are heroes in my book, and I definitely think they are on our side. And you could also argue that possibly some of the things that we're seeing today that we're so happy about that's occurring possibly wouldn't be if it wasn't for this team of people. That is one of the theories about the why now. Now, I don't know if it's accurate or not, but one of the theories of the why now, why is it happening now, is because a lot of these guys have been putting their lives on the line, making moves, and it's been a perfect storm of people finally being successful. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know, but we can't discount it or just throw it out there.
I think that's a great point. Absolutely great point as we continue on with the round table tonight here on Spaced Out Radio. And Jeremy has a comment for you, Danny. Says, we can map the topography of other planets with one satellite in a couple of weeks. UAP have been a part of the human experience forever. Do you really believe this could be just a UAP recon program?
I don't think it's just a recon program. And, I only go by what people tell me. I'm just kind of some jerk. I'm not in the government. But I have heard a lot of sources talk about the nuclear stuff, at least looking like recon. Do I know the bottom line of what's going on? No way. And I don't claim to, of course, but it is really weird. And what they're appearing to do seems to be some kind of recon. But yeah, you're right. And especially if Jeremy's 100% right. If they have this advanced tech, why are they doing this? Maybe it's going to John's point. And a lot of people do believe that there's different species, different kinds, different types. I don't know. And then, maybe different types and different kinds are doing different things and have different goals and have different, intelligence levels of what humans are doing. Maybe some of these types are more like bandits and they're not playing by the rules. Others maybe are going along with the rules. I'm getting a little weird here, but I don't know the answers. I don't get the answers, but it's interesting to ponder.
It's nice to hear you woo a little bit there. Bob, let's get your opinion.
Yeah, so there's a whole lot more to reconnaissance than just mapping the planet. So reconnaissance is causing an interaction with the asset you're looking at. So if you're over a ship, you want to see how they respond to certain things you do. You want to learn what electronic measures we might use to follow them, and so forth and so on. So it's really pretty complex, and they can only do that by being here.
All right, let's go to Big Willie here. We never know if it's Big Willie or his beard who are asking the question. He says, is it because money is on the line now? So now that money is involved, it's beneficial to those breaking the story, studying it. Just my thought question, but love all the suggestions so far. Where does money come into play, John?
I don't think. I mean, essentially, I don't actually see many inflections that seem to have any direct causality, with the exception of certain things like, for example, the Spy 1 radar coming out, right? Because you might have had a problem where people wanted to defend their people but couldn't, because they had no secondary evidence that their guys were actually seeing anything. The instant the Spy 1 radar actually had one bit of data, now they can actually go to the people and go, look, my pilot saw something and I have this one piece of data, and now they felt safe to back their people up. That might have been a tipping point, right? I don't think that money necessarily has been, because essentially what you've had is, and I've seen other people do it, I've been graphing it myself for a while now. You can go back to, like the 40s, and you can graph our trajectory of technology for a long period of time, and it's always been profitable to make bombs and missiles and guns and tanks and planes and stuff. I mean, it's good money. I mean, it's hard work. So I don't think that there's necessarily been any sudden avenue to profitability that's appeared necessarily. I think that you could get to that point soon, where there is actually a floodgate that opens. But I think right now it's not, because it would all be very clandestine. It would all be very backdoor.
All right, let's move on to another question here from Gloria. If there were a date set for them, the extraterrestrials, to come, will the government notify us that we are going to be attacked? I don't think we know if we're going to be attacked or not. I don't think we are. But, I mean, that's quite hypothetical. I don't want to bog down the question too much with negativity on that. But when I said earlier about stating a date, I think that this may have been something that we've been in communication with for a long time. And finally they said, hey, we're on our way. Bob, what do you think?
I don't actually think we know we're going to be attacked. I just think the reconnaissance that we're seeing is suspicious. So if the government has been contacted and say, hey, y'all, we're going to land on the White House lawn in 2026 on June 10th. Well, that would be a big deal, and they would really want to prepare the world, because if they don't do it and all of a sudden they show up, markets will crash, business will grind to a halt, people will stay at home and stare at their TV every microsecond, and it will be a big mess like War of the Worlds done by Orson Welles. We don't want that scenario repeated.
Danny, your thinking on that?
I don't know anything about this attack stuff. The date thing, it's a theory. It's a conspiracy theory. I'm not so sure I have much to say on this one, to be honest with you.
All right, let's go to John, and I think that's a fair, honest answer, Danny. So thank you, John.
Well, I mean, first off, I don't think there's been ever any occurrence in history where an attacking force has actually sent a message ahead of them saying, hi, we're coming. I mean, I don't know if I could be wrong, but I don't think that's ever happened. So I don't think that's likely. The only scenario I've heard of where that scenario becomes likely is, I've heard a scenario where a message is sent where it says something like, we left our stuff, we'd like it back. That's actually, that doesn't sound all that crazy to me, right? But the thing is that I think that ultimately, even if you put all that aside, let's just assume that there is some entity that wants to attack us. Let's assume that they've actually notified us that they're going to attack us. Would you tell anybody? I mean, I guess it would really depend on what you think your chances are. That's ultimately what it comes down to when you think about it. Basically, the government would have to do an evaluation of what they thought their chances are. If they thought they had no chance in hell, then there essentially wouldn't really be any point in announcing it at all. There would only be really any point in announcing it if you thought you had a chance.
Very true. Gentlemen, in the next half hour, we are going to be joined by Tim McMillan from the debrief.org and his incredible article and their incredible work. They released a brand new UFO video from an AH-64 Apache helicopter from the United States Army. And we're going to get into that. We're going to get into NASA. We got a giant half hour left on Spaced Out Radio tonight. We're having a great time. John Hudson, Danny Silva from the Silva Record, Science Bob McGwier, Dirty Phil, and yours truly, Dave Scott. Hanging on out here on Spaced Out Radio. Let's round third and head home right after this. Hey, there's Big Bad Tim. Look at that. Handsome as ever.
Guten Morgen, everyone.
Guten Morgen.
Yes. Bob, Danny, John.
Time
Dave.
for Frühstück essen?
Yes. Yeah. I really did set the alarm to wake up much earlier, Dave, I promise.
Oh, dude, that's okay. You've had a busy 24 hours.
No kidding.
The fact that you're even popping on here is great.
Well, you're already going to get me in trouble because Chrissy Newton handles all our media stuff, and she coordinates all the podcast interviews and does all this stuff. And so, and her and Micah are down in Utah at a conference right now. But before yesterday's article came out or anything, I told her, I was like, I'm not doing any interviews, I'm not doing any podcasts, I'm not doing anything. So just don't schedule me for nothing. But she's going to wake up, or perhaps is still awake, and is going to hear this. And she's
You're in
like,
trouble,
that
man.
son of a.
Oh boy, man.
I saw her in a picture with Erica and others out at that conference, so I knew she was there.
Yeah. Her and Micah are there.
Micah,
I don't know what all they have plans. I don't want to give away too much because I know that they're going to the conference, but then there's some other debrief filming, documentary jazz going on. So. Yep. I don't want to get any more trouble with Chrissy.
Nah, you keep that silent, brother. Keep that silent. That's for you guys. That's all for you guys right there. It's just a pleasure to have you here, my good friend. And
I think if you did commentary on the stuff that's happened in the last week with you, etc., you're not going to upset her. You're promoting you.
Oh yeah. No, I'm just kidding. She won't really be mad at me. She's only because she didn't get to schedule anybody else. But no, but it's fine. It's Dave. Dave, you know, I love you, man.
I appreciate that, brother. I do. I appreciate that. You know, how's the family doing?
Good, man. Good. We got a little friend's birthday party at the amusement park here in just a little bit, and kids are about to get out of school for the summer in a week, and we'll be heading off to Italy for a couple weeks. So I'll be out of pocket. Mm-hmm.
Very nice. Well deserved.
Good for you, man. Good for you.
And back to the nuclear stuff, I don't know if anyone else believes this, but, Tom DeLong was talking about how our nuclear capabilities could disrupt the craft. I think Lou has kind of intimated that without actually directly commenting on it as well. And that could be part of that the whole recon.
When we lit all these rumors go around, and they're rumors, right? But when we lit the massive thermonuclear device in the at the outer edges of our atmosphere, above the ionosphere, there are these claims that the crap hit the fan.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw all sorts of stuff going on from then on. Missiles being launched from Vandenberg and clear videos being taken of something shooting the warhead off. So if that's true, and we have really credible witnesses that that's true, then, they're showing us we've had enough of this crap.
Oh, very true. Very true.
And how much longer do we have for the commercial break there, Dave?
We have about 90 seconds.
Okay. So I'm coming in, so I don't know what else has been discussed, but along those same lines, Danny, I thought it was really bananas that at the hearing that the Maelstrom stuff, when Deputy Director Bray and Moultrie, And I don't understand that. I mean, I'll just say that, and you guys know me, I'm pretty pragmatic, right? I'm pretty, probably it frustrates people to sometimes because I'm the one who's like, I don't know, maybe they do have crash stuff. I don't know. But to not know about that is really bananas to me.
It's ridiculous.
I mean,
so Danny has said that he's worried, given that they might be prepared to lie to Congress.
And I'll say, let me put it this: you know, Bob, you've been in government, you know how it works. Those principal executives, they're not doing anything. They're not the ones doing the work. So they got briefed beforehand. They got briefing packet. They were told it. And so I actually don't think Bray or Moultrie were lying, but
I think they were ignorant.
Appear briefed. I
think they were ignorant. Yeah, that's what I believe. They were ignorant, and they were meant to be ignorant. That was a plan.
I think that's. I mean, it's astounding, and I mean, for me, I'm looking at it going. We definitely have credible witnesses saying that nuclear weapons were shut down. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a big fucking deal.
Hold on, guys. We got like 3 seconds here.
Okay.
3 seconds. Around at third, we're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. We're going to hop right into it right now. Science Bob McGwier is here. Danny Silva from the Silva Record. We have the fedora-wearing John Hudson, Dirty Filth with his great art. And we've just been joined from the debrief.org, Tim McMillan, who somehow, some way got a leaked video out of the United States Army from an AH-64 Apache looking at what Mick West calls birds, but people who actually know what airplanes look like call jet fighters. Tim, welcome to Spaced Out Radio. How you doing, buddy?
Good, man. Good. It's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me on, Dave. Sorry, I'm coming in a little late, but it'll be fun.
Well, we got to ask you about this brand new video that you guys released at the debrief.org earlier today, and what a great piece this is, my friend. And I think it's absolutely great that another good video comes out. It's very fast. I know I had to watch it a number of times in order to see what everybody was looking at. But, man, those objects are cruising in there.
Sure. Yeah. That's an interesting article. And, you knew going into it that if you were going to release a video that hadn't been seen anymore, that was going to suck up all the air. That was what everybody was going to talk about. That was going to be the focus point. And, for good reason, because I guess, if you can get any kind of real photographic proof of UAP or anything, that's a big deal. For me, when we started on this story a couple of months ago, 6 months ago, and it goes back to when the rubber duck and the Bruja and the A10 videos were leaked, those types of things, especially the rubber duck, because I was familiar with the flight platform that filmed it. And I remember going, now this is, I think that kind of all, it started controversy. It went to the wayside to an extent, but I knew the system. I'm like, this is a serious flight platform system. The people who operate them know what they're doing. And more importantly, these are videos that don't usually come out. And so I realized, hold on, this is somebody who's got real access. Like, this is somebody who's really got this. And so I kind of went on that journey to figure out how exactly did they come out, per se, and hypothesizing as it turned out to be true that this was somebody who was suggesting that these encounters were going on in an entirely separate side of the government we have really left alone and not discussed, which is Homeland Security, National Guard. There's so many other equities out here, particularly on the border. And so that's how I was able to, through Andy Marcel, meet Bob Thompson, who we introduced in that article. And he agreed to come out on the record. So for me, a lot of it, in fact, 75% of that article was trying to get across to people that this is a serious issue. There's more than the DOD. There's more than the Navy. There's other people we need to be asking these probing questions to. And that Apache video that we released wasn't given to the DoD. This wasn't one, I can confirm that for a fact. This was not one that the task force or AIMSOG got or analyzed. And so that's a problem. It's a problem that it's all not going to the same spot. But it all means that we have other people besides just the Navy, just the military. And so as fate would have it, he still had that video that he hadn't released yet. And so when we saw that, it's one of these things, Dave, you've been in media for a long time. Our job is to share information and share it as honestly as possible. But we're not an academic institution. We're not anything like that. So the important side for us is much like the Gimbal Go Fast videos that come out there is let's get information to the public, then let them scrutinize it. Let the academics scrutinize it. Let the video experts scrutinize it. For me, what you just described is what I see. I see something that 3 objects that appear to be moving fast that suddenly engage in some type of flight maneuver that is not consistent with aircraft. We all can kind of guess that aircraft don't just suddenly spin around in a 360-degree angle like that. So the idea that they're aircraft, I think, if you believe that they're fighter jets, then you essentially are ascribing they're anomalous, because there's not a fighter pilot, there's not an aircraft engineer in the world that's going to tell you that any kind of aircraft are capable of doing a maneuver like that, where they revolve around each other. The idea that they're birds, this will be one I'll be interested to see as the analysis goes by. Perhaps that is a pragmatic explanation. I don't know, because you can see throughout the video, you can see other things that you're able to quickly identify. And when I say throughout the video, I mean the whole. When I wanted to verify it, we got the whole 2-hour flight of this Apache, so to figure out what was going on. And so you see other things that aren't consistent with that. And to a large part, you have to agree that these devices aren't designed to target birds. They're not designed to show birds. They're targeting systems. They're designed to deliver weapons, warheads on foreheads. And so for the pilots to have seen what they interpreted initially as fast-moving jets, certainly, at least by that initial testimony, seems to suggest that that's not going to be birds. I think the only reason that should be examined is because of that weird 360 flight maneuver. But then we've got to take everything into account. It was 11:50 in the morning when this was filmed, or evening, 11:50 at night. This was almost midnight when it was filmed. And so I am not an avian specialist. We'll have to find out how many birds fly like that in the middle of the night and fly in this weird kind of pattern. And so it's an interesting video. Do I think that it will solve the question? No. And I know that going into it. Do I hope that we put out some more information, particularly that gives more ammunition to Congress members, to the public, to push Homeland Security, to push the National Guard, to push the FBI, the people who have surveillance equities that are in our country, that are monitoring our borders, these types of things, who, as Mr. Thompson said, they're seeing these things all the time. And that makes sense, because they're kind of in hot spots and they're out there in the middle of nowhere. If anybody's ever been to the southern border, I mean, you can see some pretty skies. I know, Danny, you live in Texas. You're not far. You kind of.
When I grew up in Tucson, actually.
Okay, so yeah, you're familiar with the area then, I guess. And I unfortunately hadn't been there, but there's some pretty clear starry nights is what I hear. And there's some good conditions to see things. Good reason to go out and look up in the sky. And so hopefully, if nothing else, this article kind of gets some people talking and puts some pressure on Homeland Security. I'd like to see that.
I want to encourage people to look at Dave Beatty's stabilization and centering of those objects. That is really worth looking at.
Absolutely. And Dave's fantastic. He does great work with it. But yeah, go ahead, Dave. Sorry. Other days, it does fantastic work.
Tim, I want to ask you, in regards to this story, you said that something like this takes a long time. You've been working on it. I know I've been working on a story for 2 years, and sometimes it just has to come to fruition. When you got that video placed in your hands, I don't want you to give up your source, but I would like you to explain to the public, if you don't mind, how that comes about, where somebody says, hey, I have this video for you. I think you should run it. How do you verify that it's the real thing? Because you don't want to be caught with egg on your face either.
Sure. Yeah. And in this instance, since he came on a record, we can say that Bob was the Bob Thompson was the initial person. This kind of process goes, and like you said, it's a very lengthy process where you start off first interviewing Bob and establishing his credibility, his credentials. So that includes making sure that he provides documentation verifying who he is, his background, which he did. But then you also want to make sure that you establish that through secondary sources. So fortunately, I did almost 2 decades in law enforcement. So I know lots of people who could verify that somebody's law enforcement credentials, because he was a federal law enforcement officer. And so once he's verified, you're listening to what he has to say. And then obviously when it comes to the video, you're exactly right. The chain of custody, you want to verify this is authentic video. And for that, at times you do have to rely on sources that don't get named in the article or even just speak on background. So that includes talking to people in government who can verify the flight, verify the Longbow 281 time, the airport where it happened, letting them take a look at the video and give their opinion. Again, because we can't, because they're either actively in government, and so they can't go on the record unless they get a public affairs official approval. And I think, as we've seen over 5 years, that's really never happens when it comes to UAP. So they have to speak on background, but getting them to take a look at it. So people who have examined and looked at UAP videos from a military standpoint, who've looked at artifacts that have been filmed on, these types of systems, the MTADs, FLIR, that type of thing, and get their opinion. So, somebody who's seen a lot more evidence than me, but is looking at it in a professional capacity and say, so what do you think? What are your thoughts? And universally, all of those thoughts they thought, yeah, this is anomalous. This is one that we would take at AIMSOC. And if it was something that had come to, the UAP Task Force or AIMSOC in 2018 when it was filmed, it's definitely one where there probably would have been a lot more data on, and it would have been one that would have been investigated. So there was nothing obvious that they see on it. They're looking at it the same way we are. And these, you have to default at time. You have to know what you know and know what you don't know. And I've never been a fighter pilot. I've never flown a fighter plane. I've never flown an Apache helicopter. So you have to talk to people who have, like Chris Lito, who was in that appeared in the article and gave his analysis, his opinion of it. He was able to get a copy of it and analyze it. And his opinion was it was anomalous. His opinion was based on some of the mathematics of how he saw his projection of how far away the objects were based on his knowledge and understanding of the FLIR systems and having used them. And then what that would mean speed-wise, and then what those rotations would mean. And so you do all of that, and at the end of the day, you stand by the fact that, okay, you've done your due diligence, that this is something that the pilots themselves thought were anomalous. When it went to the Border Patrol, who was trying to put it together, they thought it was anomalous. And so it's a lot like the air quote Batman balloon photo that was released a couple of years ago, where people argued about that. And I'm like, look, dude, I'm telling you for a fact, this is one that was in the US UAP Task Force's data set. That's all I'm saying. Now, if they're wrong, they're crazy, that's fine. But this is one that's in their data set. And so the same thing with the Apache. This is one that's in that data set of anomalous things, but certainly not the best.
Very cool. Gentlemen, I want to switch topics here because we got about 7.5 minutes left on the radio side of things here. And I want to quickly talk about NASA talking about getting into the UFO game. Is anybody else pulling out their hair, just wanting to scream at Bill Nelson and say, before you go public on something like this, why aren't you checking your own closet for what you guys have hidden for 50 years? We know that astronauts in Gemini and Apollo, all the way up to today, have seen anomalous objects in space that they cannot clarify. And yet Bill Nelson is coming out, well, maybe we should start our own agency looking into this. And wow, this is an interesting topic. Maybe extraterrestrials are here. Is anybody else frustrated that he's actually playing this card, or is it just me? Bob, let's start with you.
It's worse than that. They announced today that they're not going to stand up in office because, look, they have a charter and they have a budget. And they don't have it in a charter. They don't have funding for an office. So they can't stand up in office without Congress giving them a budget and changing their charter. That's number one. Number two, they said they were only going to provide scientific advisors to other people's efforts. So, yeah, it's frustrating as hell. What can I say? It's just as frustrating as it can be. But you would hope that they get called in front of Congress and told to tell the truth. I'll give you one example. Christina Ferretti is on the International Space Station right now. When she was up before, there was a UAP that flew right in front of them in the camera, and you can go find the video of her screaming her lungs out when that thing flew across because she was scared to death. She's up there right now. They know that happened.
Danny, your thoughts?
Like a lot of this, I see both sides of it. I see, I'm happy that there's movement and they're talking about it and there's less stigma. And on the other side, I'm furious because we know they've been looking into it the whole time and they're basically lying. And I just don't believe them that they haven't been. And all of a sudden now they are. And that goes with governments. But on the other hand, like I said, I'm ecstatic that they're happy about it or that they're talking about it. It's a great thing. It's great movement. And it's something we could bring to the public since it's no longer some conspiracy theory and they're admitting it.
Don, how about you? Your mic's on mute.
Yeah, no, I mean, the thing is, I've actually worked with a lot of people in NASA, and my personal opinion is that I'm actually really glad they're getting involved, because I actually know the guy that ran one of the bases, and basically, I have a lot of information about them, and I worked with them. We were actually the company I was at. We were the ones that actually supplied them their first 100 gig Ethernet cards, actually, to do some work, and so they tested those with us, and so what I found is, and I really encourage everyone to do this. Go to a space access conference. Go to all these local conferences that are around where you meet real rocket people, real ground truth rocket people. You will find some of the most honest, genuine, hardworking, brilliant engineers you will ever encounter. And the idea that they would put up with any sort of deceptive cloak if there wasn't some reason that they believed, or they were being very, very carefully conned, I have a really hard time. I have a really hard time believing it. I think there's a duality that exists in NASA. There's always been a duality. There were so many shuttle programs that had two completely different sides to it. A completely black side that was doing completely different things, not always bad, not negative, not evil, just black. And so they've always had this duality, and I think they have to live in this duality, and that creates a situation where they are always going to appear two-faced to anyone that tries to look at the whole beast. Right?
Well, I understand that, but Tim, with reports since the 1960s that they have scrubbed photos of UFOs and communications that they have not brought public, whether it was from Apollo astronauts, Gemini astronauts, even into the shuttle program. I mean, at some point, NASA has to admit that their hands are dirty in the UFO game.
Sure. I first of all, I agree with what everybody has said. Particularly, like Danny said, it's kind of bittersweet. So it's good and frustrating. I wholeheartedly agree with what John said. I've been fortunate enough, 2006, 2007, to work at Kennedy Space Center on the law enforcement side. So I have been exposed to NASA and NASA scientists, engineers, and I reiterate exactly what John said. These are real scientific people. They're great people who are kind of dedicated to the foundation of science. But at the same time, I've also said, and I've grown up around military bases my whole life, Kennedy Space Center was probably the most secure facility I've ever been in. I mean, it was the only one in this 2006 where the guards had MP5, machine guns at the gate, and you literally didn't get through the gate unless we had law enforcement badges from NASA. But if you didn't have that, like if you want to go on a tour, you get on a bus outside the gate, they drive you in, you stay with them, you get out. And it's not even that restricted at most military bases. It's not like that here at Spangdahlem. It's not like that.
I could not agree. The only place I've ever seen that was as secure as Ames was like Fort Huachuca, or someplace like that. It was. Basically, in the last 25 years, there have been 2 public tours of NASA Ames for this community that I live in, and we live right next to it. We support them. A lot of us, have family that work there, and still 2 public tours in 25 years. You can get in there if you're involved in some organization. I've been there, but it's not easy, and they're hardcore, and that's the place that's not even doing well. Anyway, but point is, NASA's very, very, very careful.
Very careful. And so there is kind of this dual black-white hat world kind of component to it. I will say, just in interviewing people, both in the DoD, some in NASA, that there very much, at least, is portrayed this kind of either willful apathy for any of the historic events that have gone on, or anything that has gone on predating, let's say, what we see going on now. There's this kind of rediscovery of UAP. Let me put it that way. It seems like, to an extent, a lot of times people have seemed either ignorant, like we saw with the Maelstrom Air Base thing, right, which I think is ridiculous. But we see that kind of ignorance. Personally, I think potentially what we're seeing, just looking at it from a bureaucratic angle, is setting the conditions of something that I said I could wholeheartedly see and frankly think is a good thing, is that there reaches a point where the DoD and the intelligence community says, look, this is not a national security threat. This is not a defense issue. This is not a foreign adversary. This is something that is a scientific endeavor, and we're going to hand the potato off to a scientific agency.
Gentlemen, I gotta cut it off right there for the radio side, because this 3-hour amazing roundtable just went by at the snap of a finger. Tim McMillan from The Debrief, John Hudson, Science Bob from Silva Record, Danny Silva, and earlier on Jimmy Church. Thank you so much for joining us. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother Is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight: YouTube, Twitch, LGAP, Facebook, the Space Travelers Club, and on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. I know you're out there somewhere. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we're watching. We own the night, Mr. Bumblefoot. We need a favor. We need you to take us home. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night. Good show, boys.
Thank you.
Yeah, no kidding. Hey, Tim, thanks for coming on, man. That was nice.
No, I appreciate it. Sorry I couldn't have been on earlier, but
Oh no, yeah, no, with your time difference, I can only imagine. Yeah,
it looks like I missed some good conversation, so it's unfortunate.
I'm doing some editing, guys. I'm just hanging out here for another half hour, 45 minutes. You guys?
Oh, geez, I got some place to be at 8:15 in the morning.
Well, you had.
Good night.
Yeah, good night, Bob.
Hey,
take care,
Jim,
Bob.
good to see you, bro.
Take it easy, Bob.
Good to see you too,
see
Bob.
you
Take care,
always.
man.
Hey, Tim, whereabouts in Italy are you going to go? If you don't mind saying.
No, that's what we're doing the whole road trip. We're
far
we're
out.
doing the European vacation. We're going all the way through to everywhere: Venice, Rome, Pompeii, coming back, swinging back through on the East Coast, up through Switzerland. So yeah, it'll be fun. I
gotta say, Tim,
European road vacation.
I know all sorts of expat type people, and some people like just exist, and other people actually take advantage of the beauty of the culture they're living in, and that's, man, hats off to you, because that's the way to do it, man. That's and it'll be such an incredible experience for everyone involved. It'll be so much fun.
No, it's a lot of fun. I know what you're saying too. I mean, we're here because my wife works for the Department of Defense, and so we're here at an Air Force base. But yeah, I run into a lot of the airmen and we're here in Germany, but who never get off the base. They'll do their 2-year TDY or 2-year tour, and they never really get off the base and never even experience Germany, much less, we're right here. So I'm 20 minutes from the border of Belgium or Luxembourg and about 30, 45 minutes from the border of France. And I mean, it's a 2-hour train ride to Paris, which we've done before. It's a 2-hour train ride to Cologne, Amsterdam, Brussels. And so it's really easy.
Wow. Oh,
yeah.
Wow. Oh, that's just, oh man. No, and the thing is that, the people, I was in Barcelona, I don't know, it was around there somewhere, and for a conference, and I brought my wife with me, and she met 2 other women that were there as well, and like one of them had an Italian background, and one of them, and like they just went off, man, and they I mean, the stories they came back with of just the openness and warmness and friendliness of the people. It was just such an amazing experience for her. It's very unique, very unique.
Definitely. It is. It's interesting. It is. It's interesting to be in Europe during this time. Because Dave, you and I have texted about it, but that's this latest UFO story was really the only UFO stuff that I've worked on. And in fact, thank God for Micah and Chris, who did a lot of the work, frankly, a lot of heavy lifting, because I was back and forth to Ukraine. I've been reporting on Ukraine for the past 3 months. And it's a little surreal in that regard to be able to jump on a train and be in Poland in 4 hours.
You have done
and be in a war zone.
Reporting on what's happening over there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But I mean, the thing is, being there when anything's happening. I mean, I remember I was in Berlin once, and the only thing that was going on was Obama was coming to town for some meeting, and the way that changed Berlin was shocking. It was really shocking, and that was a good thing, So when you have negative pressures that come into it, and then let's face it, all of Europe is really as much of a great experiment as we are, in that you have some very different people put together there, and when everyone's doing well, everyone gets along really well. When things get rough, that's when those divides start coming up in big ways, and you can see them show up in places you wouldn't even expect them. Like, I remember talking to this cab driver in Belgium, and I couldn't believe what I was hearing from him. But then when you start hearing about the economic situation he's been in for the last 3 years, you're like, oh, okay, now I get it, And so, yeah, being able to see that firsthand for you and your family it's just a completely unique experience.
So when do we think there's going to be more talks coming up here? Is it a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month?
Well, when is recess? I don't know when Senate leaves. They don't like, they get a lot of holidays.
Yeah.
They get a lot of holidays. And in defense, in the old days, it made sense because in the old days they were supposed to use that time to go home and actually talk to their constituents and then bring that information back to Washington. So in the old days, it made sense. I mean, I think that there's a really good chance that that we could see something before the 6th. I think that if it doesn't happen by the 6th, then I think it will probably push out to, August, September, something like that.
Danny, what are you hearing for talks?
About what, the hearings?
Yeah, more hearings and talks.
Not too much. What did Jazz Shaw said it was next week, but I don't know where he's getting this information from. Tim probably knows a lot more than me.
No, like I said, my headspace really, other than this last story, to a large part, has been in Ukraine, and so I get my stuff from like Micah and Chris, who are still following it. But I'm not aware of any upcoming hearings on the books. But at the same time, I think it boils down to, I mean, they just got to call them. It depends on different congressional subcommittees or committees who want answers, feel frustrated. I think what we saw with the subcommittee hearing, the impetus behind that hearing was, if you tease through the lines, was some people were frustrated at the status. And I think Brian Bender put out an article saying as such. They were frustrated at the status of it. I thought,
all right, boys, we got about 30 seconds. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Yeah. No,
I'm just playing with audio here. Cut it for the radio station.
Oh, I was like, what? 30 seconds? For what? What are we doing? I thought Moultrie is a great political speaker because he said it and it sounded good and you were like, oh, okay, great news. But when they, were upset that there hadn't even been a director for AIMSOG named yet, and Moultrie, said, yes, no, we have to name director last week. It sounded good until you process that and go, what it really says is, yes, no, we named director last week whenever you told us you wanted us to come testify. And we put out some job announcements for analysts. So what they're really saying is we actually hadn't done anything until you were like, oh, you really want us to do this. So that's kind of the point of those hearings. I mean, some of it, when you saw those videos, they're props. Those are props. They're not sharing.
But this is also normal baseball, right? This happens for other things other than UFOs, right? And so that's the other reason why we can expect a Senate hearing, because there is a competition that exists between the two houses, and if the House does anything successfully and they get any good press for it, the Senate will try to re-up them. Same thing, other way. It always happens. So you're almost guaranteed. Basically, if there isn't a Senate hearing, then it essentially means the House hearing failed.
Yes, no, I agree. And I think the Senate Select Intelligence, particularly Gillibrand and Rubio, you're absolutely right, John. I mean, that's why when we saw the Gillibrand Amendment was announced, it was initially the Gillibrand Amendment. Then suddenly it turned into the Gillibrand-Rubio Amendment. And that's because, exactly like John said,
and that was a good thing.
It's a good thing. You're right. There's political jockeying. And it was interesting because, you saw Rubio, very much like normal legislation. Rubio said, wait a minute, you're not going to jump the gun on an issue that I want to be one of my cornerstone issues. I'm getting in with you. And so that's a good thing. And like I said,
it is. It's a really good thing. And that's the thing. In a healthy government, you will get the outliers in each group that are focused on an issue will start to come together in a more impactful way than their own party lines because of that shared value and that shared interest. And that's when you start getting real negotiations and you start getting a breakdown of walls. And so it's the way it's supposed to work. That's a healthy environment.
Hey, Tim, I don't know if you know this or not, but I'll give you guys permission if you want to use it. On June 1st, I have Canadian MP Larry McGwier coming on for an hour to talk, the first hour of the show, to talk about UFOs in Canada and what he thinks needs to be done.
Oh, that'll be good. Yeah. No, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah.
I just,
We'll
I
definitely.
just have credit and a link. That's it.
No, yeah, absolutely, dude. Of course. Yeah, I mean, that'll be interesting. I think it's great to be able. I mean, you've really uh, capitalized that and done a lot to push the Canadian side of things, like what's going on government-wise, what's happening here, because we don't see a lot of that. The international.
Well, did you hear me? Did you hear me a couple weeks ago get outed by Elizondo?
What happened?
Well, you know how you and I have talked. I can release it now because, it's kind of, how I had been working on that one story for a couple of years regarding the RCMP, and well, I had somebody from Ottawa reach out to me. I think I told you that.
Mm-hmm.
And, anyways, long story short, they approached me about. Well, he met with them February of last year. They approached me in about January of last year if I knew how to get a hold of Elizondo to potentially hook up the Canadian members of Parliament in a meeting with Elizondo. So I said, well, I kind of have him in my cell phone. I'll call him up. So I actually called him up, and Elizondo's like, yeah, give him my name, my phone number, and tell him I'm free to talk to him. And that actually, so when Elizondo was on last, he actually outed me because I kept that quiet. You know what it's like, journalistic integrity. You got to keep shit quiet. And he outed me right in front of my public about saying how I'm the guy who brought Canada, the U.S. in the UAP talks. Now, I don't believe that, but you know what? It was nice to get the acknowledgement.
Hey,
Normally,
take the icing when you get it, Dave. Might as well enjoy it once in a while.
Well, good job. And now I'm glad to hear that. Now you can be part of the deep state like me, evidently. So
deep state now.
Yeah,
but I mean, seriously, let's face it, right? I mean, think about how many people in this community have a contact. They know somebody. They have an in. They have something, right? And if everyone,
man, I'm telling you,
their inside baseball skills to push things along, I don't know how much of an impact it would have, but I guarantee you it would be a noticeable one.
Of course, yeah, I agree. I mean, people know people. People have family members that work in different things. People have friends who work in different things, and I think with this, with the article we just put out yesterday, I mean, that was one of the points that I wanted to try to get across. Was that initially these videos had come to Andy Marcel, who ran an Instagram UFO channel. I mean, relatively obscure, and I don't mean that derogatorily, right. But when I talked to Bob, like, why'd you reach out to Andy? And he said, I've always just been a fan of the little guy, and he's like, I liked what he was saying, and he, I liked him, and so I thought, I'm going to reach out to you, but that can certainly happen, and I think they both correctly kind of said that maybe some of the pushback or response from the release after the rubber duck videos and everything was interesting because people get upset. They argue about mainstream fake news, mainstream media is corrupt and everything. But then when things come through other channels or independently, then it's dismissed because it didn't come from mainstream media. It's kind of this weird ego dystonic kind of attitude that mainstream media is fake news, but if it doesn't have the stamp from the New York Times or somebody, it's fake. And so it's weird.
No, I mean, because what it really comes down to is everyone basically judges it based on their gut, and then they come for logic afterwards to explain why they came to that decision because they don't want to just say it was their gut because for some reason they don't think their gut instinct is important, which could be another problem. But hey, you know what? I'm really sorry to do this because Tim, first time I got to talk to you, I could probably do this for hours, but I got a little girl I got to take care of, so I got to run. But hey, it was great talking to you guys. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening. Tim, thank you so much for joining. A lot of fun. But I got to jet. So you guys have a good evening.
Yeah, no, it was good meeting you, John. Take care.
Yep. Take it easy. Thanks a lot, guys.
And then there were three.
Danny, it's good to see you, man. I was asking the other day because I hadn't seen you on Twitter in a while, but that's because Twitter, Everything I've been doing has been on Ukraine, so that's what my news feed looks like now. You know how Twitter shifts your feed around. If you're not talking about something, they don't show you anybody, even if you follow them. So you doing all right, dude?
We've never actually talked, I don't think, face to face, so it's nice.
I haven't. Maybe we haven't. Yeah, that's a damn shame. Yeah,
Well,
it's been years.
Everybody together. It's like a
Yeah,
whole family here.
You're bringing in the Canadian government. Yeah, man. Dave, you're like the UN.
It's always good to talk to people that especially after battling them over the years. I talked to Jimmy earlier. That was interesting, and I was a good boy and didn't bring anything up. But you know, I respect you, Tim. I know we battled at times, but
Sure.
you know, you're a Jewish brother like me, so you know.
Yeah. So you're absolutely right, and yeah, and I think it brings up a good point. Because I do this all the time. You know, I'll see myself either battling on Twitter or somebody's upset with me about something. And then I'll say, you know, dude, you know, I've started. How about, you know, you want to jump on a Twitter space real quick and we can chat live or we can do whatever, because I think that, and it's unfortunate this is the first time that we've gotten a chance to talk, because I think when people have a chance to actually like interact with each other more than 280 characters at a time, things are much more meaningful. Things get achieved.
Yeah, and it's okay to even debate and battle stuff. Like, I had a Zoom with Stephen Greenstreet like a couple years ago. He asked me to Zoom with him, and ever since then, like, he doesn't make me mad. Like, I can disagree with like 99% of what he says, and but I don't hate the dude, and I think he's like entertaining. I think he's screwing some stuff up, and he's a jerk at times, but I don't like personally hate him. I'm just like debating him, and I think he understands that, so it's cool.
Yeah. I would say I probably have a similar relationship with Steven. I mean, I have had a good relationship with him up until recently. You know, up until recently, he's
and I don't like
taken,
really know him or anything, but we did Zoom, and I mean, I know he's like super passionate, and he's probably screwing up the subject in a lot of ways, but I don't hate the guy personally. He's just some dude talking. I mean, I don't know. But we all got to keep each other kosher, right? By talking shit to each other. So
sure, yeah. I mean, especially with me, if I'm arguing with somebody, that means I probably still like them. Like the worst for me is when I just ignore people. If I ignore people, that means I just don't give a shit. I
tried to drop some of my ego a while back, and I think it did me some good where I'm not just blasting people, and I still do. I still have that side of me, but I tried to take some of the ego out. It was cool hearing about Tucson in your story, just from growing up there. You know, I don't judge videos. I have no idea what the video shows or any other video for that matter. I suck at that stuff, but I like the spotlight on other agencies, and just the Tucson is so like beautiful and majestic and amazing. And like you said, they have all these like cameras and everything because of the border, and it's really cool. And just talking to like Lou and all these other people, they're always like name dropping all these other people like FEMA and all this other stuff, and that are involved. And I think if it seems like just anybody who comes up on maybe something the first time, they're the one that catches it. So it doesn't have to be like a UAP program or something.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think that there is, and that was a lot of what Bob Thompson was talking about in the article, and his reason for wanting to, you know, he wasn't trying to start up his own ATIP. Rather, none of the agents who saw stuff knew what to do with it. Like it wasn't that there was no reporting requirements at the time. There was no like, what do we do with this? And so he was trying to establish the guidelines and reporting requirements because he felt like a lot of good data was just being lost because nobody knew what to do with it. So it either got erased or who knows what happened to it. But you're absolutely right. I mean, I can remember like FEMA's command trailer. So I've been in FEMA's command trailer before, one of their mobile command trailers. And, you know, they have a camera surveillance system on it that, I mean, you could zoom in and, for example, you could zoom in and read somebody's text messages as they're texting, 100 yards, 300 yards away, that good. And so there are really some different systems that are out there that are used for things like catching drug smuggling. The FEMA one was during a hurricane, so disaster response. But these types of equities are out there, and they can be used for this. But I know for a fact, if when I was in the FEMA trailer, was that Hurricane Matthew, so 2017, 16, something around there, if we'd zoomed in on a tic tac, while we were surveying hurricane damage, and suddenly a tic tac emerged, and we zoomed in on it, what would we have done with that video? We truthfully probably made a copy and done like the Nimitz guys and girls did, made a copy, shared amongst ourselves, said, look at this. But in terms of any official capacity, no, we probably, wouldn't have even released it publicly because we just wouldn't have known what to do with it. But that potential exists. So hopefully we'll see more of that come out because there's no telling what's out there.
Was there any other sensors that caught anything down there, or any other like satellites, or what Lou's talking about how they cross-reference stuff?
For the Apache event, or just
or anything else even, yeah.
Oh, I know for some of them. So, like the rubber duck, I know that they had other sensor systems going on and that type of thing. I know that there was, I don't know specifically, but I know that there were other aspects that the pilots made it seem anomalous. It did not a balloons, that type of thing. So more than just what you see visually. I think we have a lot of those. That was the thing with the again, air quote, Batman balloon series. So the Acorn, the photos that came out, that George Knapp released, the other parts of that series. We always said, look, I'm looking at it, I'm like everybody else. It looks like it could be a balloon. I'm not, but at the same time, you've got the pilots who are circling around it, photographing it. There's something going on there that they don't think it's a balloon. And in those particular series of photos, I don't know what, only that there was, quote, some other interesting aspects that make it a little more difficult. And so that would lead me to believe there was some sensor systems that picked it up, whether that's radio frequency stuff. I don't know, but we can kind of infer that same thing from the hearing testimony with Bray when they showed that video, which was really just supposed to be a prop. But when they showed that video, and I think I can't remember what congressman was asking, was there any more data on that? Did we pick that up on sensors? And Bray essentially deferred to the classified closed door hearing, but simply said, we at least have that. I can say that we at least have that here. If the answer was no, he would have said no. So there's definitely plenty of times that I think they have a lot more data. The Air Force officer that we quoted but didn't name in that article was very adamant, and it is somebody that I trust, and it is somebody I believe that was very adamant that there is compelling evidence that the government has. That probably didn't come as a shock to anybody, but it's at least acknowledging it. It does exist.
Well, Tim, let me ask you this, if you don't mind, regarding that, because this question kind of came up. Jeremy Corbell was in our chat room tonight, and he actually asked this question, and I'll ask it to you. In regards to the information that is going on right now, why do you think that? Why now? What is the why now in all of this, the last 4.5 years? I think a lot of people would like to know that. It's an important question.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. And it's not one that I necessarily, I can say I don't know. I don't have the concrete answer for why now. I can certainly infer some things. We can add some data points that likely contribute to why now. I think it would be unfair to say that the actions of even going back to Tom DeLonge and TTSA and Lou Elizondo and Chris Mellon haven't played a major role in Why Now. I mean, they've kind of made it an issue that cannot be ignored. They've put it on the forefront, and especially people like Chris Mellon, who are good, savvy political operators, have been able to get it in front of Congress and get it taken seriously. But I don't have a good answer for why now, and I don't have a good answer for why now, like it's a new thing. That there's kind of sentiment that it all started in 2004, and so there's not a lot of discussion about anything that has gone on in the preceding decades. It's almost like they rediscovered.
I guess what I'm looking at is, never mind Lou or TTSA or anything like that, and it's no insult to them. I'm not trying to throw any shots here, but for 70 years, people were destroyed over this. Okay, it was a fringe movement. It was look at Paul Benowitz. I mean, it cost him his life. I mean, people have had their careers and their lives ruined over this subject the last 70 years since Roswell. And it doesn't make sense to me, the whole why now aspect of why all of a sudden we need to be talking about UFOs and UAP or whatever we want to call them, because there's been so much influx over the decades regarding this. And I think that's a lot of the confusing part for many of the public is there was no reason, Chris Mellon, Lou Elizondo, Tom DeLonge, or whatever, there was no reason for this to come out.
Sure. I agree with you. I mean, it is a good question that I don't have an answer to. I'd be curious to hear, Danny, your thoughts, or I'm open to hearing what Jeremy or anybody has to say as to why now, because I don't have an answer for that. Truly don't.
I think it's really weird that when you go back and look at things like, I had forgotten, and then someone brought it up recently, like Steve Justice drew that ship that TTSA was supposed to build. It wasn't like Tom DeLonge did or somebody. I mean, Steve Justice drew it, and he isn't just some guy. And there's all these other weird aspects of things, but we were kicking around this topic earlier before you were here, Tim, and one of them is it was a perfect storm of people making moves. I think Eric Davis has kind of intimated that in public interviews that like it just things are working. Finally, I don't know. That's just one of the things on the table. Dave was saying some more wild woo type of maybe why nows. There seems to be some green light that has happened. But there's still a battle of people that want it out and people that don't. I freaking don't know what's going on myself. But I'm just glad it's occurring. But I think also it's there's like this process going where they want certain info out and other info not out. And I don't know. It's just really hard to wrap my head around. And I've asked Lou directly this before, and he's given me a bunch of answers, and I still couldn't wrap my head around it. And I couldn't process it at all. And I don't even know what he had told me. Like, that's how much I didn't understand.
Sure. Yeah. If I had to
Go ahead,
give you my best guess speculation, Dave, all right, that most pragmatic, let me put it that way, the best guess speculation. So it doesn't require the necessity of anything really exotic, but not discounting it could be that. I think the perfect storm scenario makes sense to me. And I think the idea that we see this is something that we normally see in all facets of life, where generationally people, ideas, attitudes change for what is appropriate, what isn't appropriate, what we can talk about, what we can do. Just recently here in the last year, they've allowed, it's now in policy, female members of the military don't have to have their hair all tight pulled back. They can wear nail polish, they can have earrings. It seems silly, but this is something that before was prohibited. And the reason that it's not now is that the generations of people who are coming into power now take a different view of the world, or different view of what is important. and what is significant. And so the idea that potentially the people who have taken a more conservative view, and I don't mean that in the political sense, but conservative as in we don't need to release this, we don't need to talk about this, we don't need to deal anything. Perhaps they are out of power and going out of power, and the people who are in power now have a different view. They believe it's something more that can be discussed. It can be kind of brought out in the open. That would be my pragmatic guess if I had to guess.
All right, I have a couple. I know I can't keep you guys much longer here, but I just have a couple questions from our audience, and then we'll pretty much call it the night here. G
Sure.
West, two of them, and his first one is: I'm sure the USA isn't the only country that has fancy cameras. Why hasn't any country tried to take a lead in the UAP topic and release their stuff?
I only have conspiracy theories about this. I have no direct knowledge. So one would be there's like some sort of like set of rules among countries. I have no idea if that's accurate. It probably isn't. It's more of a conspiracy theory where like they're not talking about it and they're letting the United States take the lead. Now that would make sense for countries that we're friends with, but it wouldn't really make sense with countries we're not. So I have really no idea. And then I guess the other side of it would be that they're just trying to keep the info to themselves and they're playing chess. But I have no idea. What do you think, Tim?
I think your answer is really good. I think I don't necessarily agree with the conspiracy that not discounting again, because ultimately I don't know, but I think that generally speaking that countries are they're very inclined to handle it a lot how the U.S. has, in which if you encounter anything that's in your airspace that is unknown, it's typically viewed as a national security threat and therefore classified. And so even if you expand that to near peer potential adversaries like Russia or China, that's, they're particularly closed guarded because their first thought is this could be U.S. Same thing with the U.S. This could be China. This could be Russia. So all of this information is closed off. And when it comes to our allies, it kind of boils down to the fact that there's not another nation that has the global capacity that the United States has in terms of military and intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance, satellite, airborne platforms. There's not another nation that has that capability, which is why you have systems like NATO or you have systems like NORAD where countries come together and they work together. So they share these kind of capabilities, but a lot of the airborne surveillance reconnaissance stuff that comes out of whether it's here in Germany or Italy, it's coming through combined operations that go through the United States, and so the United States maintains control of those. So in some instances, it may be something where there's not another nation that has the ability to release it themselves. Outside of what they maybe encounter on their own sensor systems, and then why they wouldn't discuss it more, I don't know. Other than that it's kind of a cultural taboo. I know it is here, and here in Germany they don't discuss it at all. Like it's not even something that is really of public interest.
All right, let's get to another quick question here from G West. Is there anything stopping another respectable country to say, screw the U.S., here's our stuff, we think the whole world should see this?
Nothing that I'm aware of. Certainly nothing that I'm aware of. There's no formal treaties or anything like that I'm aware of. So I don't think there is anything preventing anyone else. It would be great if they did. That'd be fun.
Yeah, no kidding. I'm just surprised. Considering like China or Russia or somebody who's always wanting to try and one-up the United States, I'm surprised they haven't done it. I'm really not surprised. Unless there's some backdoor conversations that are happening about this and everybody's agreed that the U.S. takes the lead on it.
Yeah, I don't know. I will say that it is some of it could be cultural bias in that it's perceived that way because if you don't speak Russian, you don't speak Chinese. Because I will say that in Russian, ironically enough, that the topic of UFOs comes up in their military and even academic journals relatively freely and relatively as if fact. They will discuss it and say, they're seeking new technologies or new principles of physics knowledge that they know exists because of UFOs. I mean, they say it just really matter of factly, and this is in their Russian language, their Russian Academy of Sciences documents, their Russian Academy of Sciences. So there actually is somewhat more open discussion in other countries than people probably realize. If you're English speaking, you don't realize it because you don't read Russian or Chinese.
And we could get real woo here and get real conspiratorial again. And, if you're reading into Slide 9 and all this other kind of thing, and the phenomena is manipulating people, but I digress. I don't know.
Dan, if that's woo, that is just absolutely massive coming from you. Massive. All right, final question, guys. This is from GFGFGFG. Tim, could you expand on your quote? They weren't flying saucers. They weren't Tic Tacs. They were something that possessed the ability to make your mind see what makes sense to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's referencing a quote that somebody told me when I was working on the Bass 10-month report for Popular Mechanics, so a couple of years ago. And what they were suggesting is that these objects possess the ability to influence perception and how they're perceived. That in and of itself is not crazy, and frankly, I wouldn't even say that is woo. Because we know that perception can be influenced. I mean, that's the principles of camouflage. So we camouflage it so it looks like a bush, not a tank. So we know that perception can be influenced. In this particular instance, it would be, I don't know how it could be done, but it would be external perception manipulation, which again, these are just chemical processes in the brain. I mean, you take LSD, it changes those chemical processes, and suddenly you can see things that you don't normally see. And so it can be done. We know that it can be done. Can you do it externally like that? So can you have some type of object, craft, mechanical, non-mechanical, organic? I don't know, but that has the ability to alter perception and change how it is viewed. That's what the person was alluding to, is that and I don't know that they were speaking on behalf of all UAPs that have been seen. All UAPs, there could be a multitude of different things people see, but in this particular instance, that's what they were describing, is that they were trying to express that these were some type of highly advanced technological devices that could alter perception. Again, that in and of itself doesn't sound crazy to me. In fact, I think in a number of instances in which I've talked to witnesses, which I won't claim to be extensive, they have expressed some type of manipulation of perception. Oftentimes you'll hear it where people will say auditory exclusion, where it sounds like all the birds stopped chirping, like everything came to a standstill and they've seen an object close. That is that's a perception issue. I think when the people say that, it leads people to think that the UFO has made all the birds stop talking or chirping, and all the traffic nearby suddenly come to a stop. But at the opposite side of it, what is going on is that it's auditory exclusion. You're no longer perceiving sound anymore. Same way you can have olfactory exclusion. So smell exclusion. If you spray cologne or perfume on yourself, you smell it initially, but then you stop smelling it. It's called artifact extinction. So this can be done, but that's what they were alluding to, which is intriguing, is this idea that these, whatever they are, have the ability. I don't know whether it's overt, as in they can project and change whatever they want to look like to somebody, or is there some characteristic about them that causes them to be perceived differently by different observers? That I don't know, but I think that has always been an aspect that fascinates me. I think the non-mechanical flight patterns, or I discussed this with Gary Nolan yesterday, and he mentioned it on Twitter, that the Levi flight forging patterns of flight, so the chaotic housefly kind of flight. I think these are all very interesting aspects that maybe give us some indications of what could be we're looking at.
Right. Danny, do you want to expand, or are you done?
I think I'm done on that one. Thank you.
All right. John Music from Twitter says, "Hi Tim, how you doing?" And all that good stuff. But for our YouTube audience, we're going to call it the night here. Thank you so much for a great show, everyone, and we really do appreciate it. I mean, this was a record night for our roundtable in the history of doing it. Over 307 live at one point. That was just phenomenal. We'll don't forget this weekend, Jessica Jones is in with the Cryptid Huntress off the trails, 7 p.m. Saturday and Sunday Eastern, that's 10 p.m. And then right after that, followed by After Hours. I know Tim has to go to a birthday party. Danny looks like he's got to go to Betty Bye. I got to get up for work in the morning. So we'll see you guys all later. Take care. Hold on, guys.
All right.